an avenue to disseminate the research outputs to all stakeholders and provides an opportunity for multidisciplinary interaction as evidenced by the diversity in the sub-themes of the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the virtual exhibition will show just a snapshot of patented innovations and technologies that can contribute to the national, regional, and global development agenda. This conference should contribute to the translation of some of the patented innovations into marketable products to move them from the valley of death to the mountain of life and thrive by providing opportunity for partnerships and collaborations. We thank you all for joining us, and we value your participation. We hope that you will be fully participating today and tomorrow. Finally, I wish to take this opportunity to invite the Vice Chancellor of Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, Professor Victoria Wambui Ngumi, who is represented by Professor Bernard Ikua, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Administration and Finance, to give her welcoming speech, and thereafter invite our chief guest, Professor Walter Oyawa, to address this congregation and officially open the 15th JKUAT Scientific, Technological, and Industrialization Conference and Exhibition. Thank you and welcome, Vice Chancellor Representative. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Let me first give the apology for our Vice Chancellor. He is having some challenges. She'll be joining us shortly and has requested that I represent her. And we hope that she will be joining us. She's having a network problem now. So I'll read her speech. So the chief guest, Professor Engineer Walter Oyawa, Director General, National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation. Keynote presenters, Deputy Vice Chancellors present, principals of colleges and campuses, distinguished scholars and researchers, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be part of this important gathering as we mark the 15th JKUAT Scientific, Technological, and Industrialization Conference, whose theme is refocusing research, innovation, and entrepreneurship for excellence in higher education in the era of COVID-19. Even though we cannot meet physically due to the COVID-19 pandemic that has sent shockwaves throughout the globe, I am glad that the virtual conference has brought together varied participants, among them academia, government and industry players from across the globe. This conference is an important event in our academic calendar, and it serves as a rich opportunity for researchers and scholars to share their findings with the peers which cover varied thematic areas that include physical, medical, and social sciences, agriculture, environment, and technology. The papers provide possible solutions to various challenges afflicting society. They include food insecurity and poor nutrition, climate change, health burdens, processing and manufacturing technologies, policy and governance applications of information and of information and communication technologies. I am confident that the solution provided in this paper will play a key role in enhancing the development agenda of any country, and specifically to Kenya, the attainment of the four pillars of development, that is the big four agenda of affordable housing, access to health, food security, and manufacturing. I implore on you to effectively and efficiently present and interrogate one another's paper. Let us be aware that we are indeed addressing felt needs identified in the society. Keep in mind that each of the papers being presented in this forum is a testimony of commitment and hard work by the scholars involved and further serves and as important building stones in the academic and professional careers. Distinguished participants, the hosting of an academic forum such as this one requires significant human and material input. This includes funds for research and innovation, materials and equipment, infrastructure, and logistics. This calls for significant mobilization through partnerships and collaborations with government agencies, the private sector, and development partners. As I conclude, let me wrap up by saying that even as we enter the uncharted territory brought about by the pandemic, we reinvigorate research and innovation. We need to innovate, reach out to new partners, and build synergies across the board. If we can pull together and generate renewed momentum in the areas identified in the sub-themes of the conference, we can reignite passion and the zeal for research and innovation, hence achieve sustainable development for our countries. Finally, I wish to thank the various parties that have in one way or another supported our scientists and researchers, thus making this conference a success. As always, your contributions are highly valued. We look forward to your continued support as we strive to implement the solutions provided in the conference's papers. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to invite our chief guest, Professor Engineer Walter Oyawa, who is himself an astute researcher and who is no stranger to JKUAT, to address this congregation and officially open this 15th JKUAT Scientific, Technological and Industrialization Conference for exhibitions. Thank you and welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Quite clear.
The Vice Chancellor, Professor Victoria Ngumi, ably represented by Professor Ikua, DVC RP, who I believe is the lead person in organizing this event. Professor Ikua, the DVC administration. I'm not seeing Professor Kenyuru, but I send my regards. Other DVCs present, principals, deans, present, heads of departments, invited eminent presenters, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen. First, allow me just to thank what I would call my alma mater and the VC for inviting me to this session. I don't know whether I should speak like a staff because my VC is present, but I'm also in another capacity serving the country. So it's indeed a mixed up day for me. But I would want to say that I'm indeed humbled to join our alma mater today for the opening of this 15th JKUAT Scientific, Technological and Industrialization Conference and Exhibition. Taking note that this is the 15th, I do believe that the planners of such a conference could see the future. They might even have seen into the situation where JKUAT will be called upon to lead the other institutions under the current situation that we are going through. So it's quite an event. It's coming as a unique time. We never expected the spread of COVID to continue up to this year, but we are able to see that a year later, the pandemic continues to disrupt every aspect of our livelihood, including the academia, the research, the industries, the revenue, as of the moment, I think we have been told that the exchequer will cut a certain percentage of revenue for all the sagas, except for the universities. So the severity of the disruption has realized the importance of undertaking cutting-edge research, and not only research that ends up in Wanjiku's hands to help the country. So it is indeed timely and fitting to discuss the aspect of research and innovation for sustainable development in this era or regime of COVID-19, as envisioned in this year's theme. I'm aware that the conference participants are drawn from within the African region and beyond, an indication of the reputation of the event over the years as it continues to attract and attain, I think, a global status. The event without doubt enhances the university's standing as a center of global excellence in research, training, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Dear participants, I am pleased to note that JKUAT continues to collaborate with the industry partners, the government and government agencies, including the Commission, that's the National Commission for Science, Technology, and Innovation, on various platforms. The university, for instance, in collaboration with our commission, that is NACOSTI, is one of the leading researchers in manufacturing. And we are looking forward to that program being enhanced. Indeed, we are trying to extend, that was just like the pioneer projects, 2 research years which have done exceptionally well, one based at Moi University and the other one based at JKUAT. The one of JKUAT is still ongoing, but even as it's ongoing, I think we're making efforts to bring in other key research year programs, particularly focusing, trying to, in an attempt to celebrate eminent persons. And I would just want to, even as we plan for this, to inform the gathering that where you can give us support, we are trying to create research years to celebrate eminent persons like Professor Wangari Maathai. We look forward to starting with the one of Dr. Richard Leakey. We probably might, given the opportunity, start off like a Dr. Richard Leakey research year, celebrating his life for the great work that he has done for this country. So this is something that I put out there, and we will be welcome to the various ideas and initiatives that come from the universities. Now, this program aims at strengthening the manufacturing chair program at JKUAT, aims at strengthening the coconut value chain in Kenya, really focused on one of the key Big 4 agenda areas. And therefore, there are a lot of expectations from our side that it will not just end up as some research where people are published extensively, but we'll be able to see an impact beginning from the coastal region. So given that the coconut crop is grown widely along the Kenyan coastline, we look forward to tap into the work that Professor Kua and team and JKUAT as the institution have done. With such collaborations, I'm confident that the economy of the country will substantially grow. It is obvious that the game changer under the COVID regime is going to be science, technology, and innovation. It is really obvious. And we have been reading the news. You have seen even the incoming president of the US, President Biden, has already elevated the science advisor to the level of a cabinet secretary. So this is a grand opportunity for JKUAT. COVID is a disaster. It's a pandemic, but researchers could turn the other side of the coin and make it an opportunity, a grand opportunity for renewal, for invigoration of the activity that JKUAT has been doing, taking note of the keywords in JKUAT, an institution of technology in both science and agricultural sciences. I am alive to the fact that organizing an event of this magnitude and maintaining it on an annual basis is indeed a great challenge. I therefore wish to acknowledge the great efforts by the university management led by my VC, Professor Mary Ngumi. It's a great work, and with the team that I'm able to see physically here, Professor Mary Abukusa, Professor Ikua, Professor Kenyuru. I call upon researchers to explore useful networks, especially in the private sector, that will facilitate the scaling of your research findings to higher levels. And indeed, there's a great paradigm shift. Just without taking much of the time to inform you that at the moment, through the guidance of the ministry, all the key agencies that you need to upscale your research are based at what we're calling the NACOSTI building. The Kenya National Innovation is on the ground floor. I think they came in 2 months ago. The National Biosafety Authority is also there. The National Research Fund, which I'm seeing is a co-organizer, is also there in that building. And the aim was to bring this core key players in the STI ecosystem under one house. So when you come there, you can visit any of these key agencies, the one who is funding, the one who is charged with commercialization, and the one who is a regulator. As NACOSTI, our key work is to regulate the STI sector. We are like the Commission for University Education on the other side of life. So we would pray that JKUAT will take advantage of this. Probably some of you might be aware that a number of activities are happening in a very fast and rapid, just like the COVID is unfolding rapidly. So it's up to researchers gathered here to make use of those opportunities as they come and as they rise. So as I'll be making my presentation, I'll give more details, but I know JKUAT is in line for this to take advantage of whatever comes right now under this current COVID era. I have no doubt that in the course of this two-day event, we are going to meet new areas of knowledge, many of which will present great potential for exploitation in the future. I therefore call upon participants, audience included, to interrogate with passion whatever will be tabled by the researchers, with the primary view of improving on the outputs. At all levels, platforms such as this should always encourage healthy academic discourse. To fellow academic colleagues, may I take this opportunity to offer sincere appreciation for the invitation to preside over this important function. I'm confident that through the forum, policymakers, industry, and government in its entirety will gather useful information and vital areas of cooperation with research stakeholders. I would just want to add that we had a symposium in November, and in that symposium, there were several resolutions that were made by the participants there. At some point, we'll be circulating this, and this could also help guide on the direction that we are trying to steer the research agenda in this country. So with those few remarks, it's now my humble pleasure and duty to declare the 15th JKUAT Scientific, Technological, and Industrialization Conference and Exhibitions officially open. Thank you very much, and God bless. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chief Guest, Professor Walter Oyawa. If it was a physical meeting with all these people from all over the world, we would really have clapped big and applauded those great remarks. However, even on virtually, thank you very much for agreeing to come or to be the chief guest. Now, moving forward, would like to take a very brief session to show members or the participants of the conference a display of the exhibitions that we are expecting. Members, or participants, if I may bring it to your attention, we will have an exhibition, a virtual exhibition, that will be running throughout the conference, and this will be out room on its own. So immediately after the keynote address that will follow, we will have the breakout sessions, and you are free to go and have a look at the exhibitions at the breakout room. You'll be free to join in and move out to any other room as you wish. However, at this juncture, members, I would like to take us through a few slides on what to expect when you go to the exhibition room. This is JKUAT, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology 15th Scientific and Technological Conference, whose theme is refocusing research, innovation, and entrepreneurship for excellence in higher education in the era of COVID-19. I'll be taking you through this brief presentation. My name is Dr. John Kenyuru, and I'm the Director of Research and Affairs at JKUAT, Research Affairs at JKUAT. JKUAT is a university based in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, and our vision is to be a university of global excellence in training and entrepreneurship for development. Our mission is to offer accessible quality training, research, innovation, and entrepreneurship in order to produce culture, engineering, technology, enterprise development, built environment, health sciences, social sciences, and other to suit the needs of a dynamic world. We are guided by a clear vision aimed at projecting the institution as a university of global excellence in training, research, innovation, and entrepreneurship for development. We have 5 colleges with over 400 academic programs, pure and applied sciences, health sciences, agriculture and natural sciences, and human resource development. Is proactive in Africa's development, mainly through various research initiatives. In 2012, for example, JKUAT won a competitive bid to host the Pan-African University Institute for Basic Sciences, Technology and Innovation, PAUSTI, a grant that has thrust JKUAT's prominence in Africa's integration and development through graduate training. What do? We offer training. We do research, we conduct research. We are innovators, so we do innovations, and we also do technology transfer. So in keeping, if you could switch that off. In keeping with the government's 4 pillars of development, JKUAT researchers and exhibit 15th Scientific, Technological and Industrialization Virtual Conference geared towards sustainable development. So welcome to the exhibition. A few slides. These are some of the innovations. I'm just going to quickly go through a few of the exhibitions that you will see in the room, but there will be much more. We are a leading institution in this region, working and researching on African indigenous vegetables. These are very well known to us in the tropical regions. And we have researched on different vegetables, right from production, seed propagation, seed aggregation, all the way to value addition of these indigenous vegetables. We have been registered, and we are one of the institutions that distributes certified seeds for planting of indigenous vegetables. Next. JKUAT is also spearheading research farming and processing, and JKUAT is recognized as one of the leading institutions globally on crickets, black soldier flies, grasshoppers, and recently locusts. So we have developed technologies that are able to mass produce them in a safe way, in a secure way, and be able to process these insects as food and feed for animals. So we are solving the problem of malnutrition using insects, which is one of the largest biomass in the world, or in the universe rather. So in the exhibition, you'll see the technologies we are having on production of edible insects for human food and feed for animals. Next. So those are some of the value-added products that we have for human consumption, where you can eat the insects whole, you can mill them into powder, you can blend them with other food ingredients to produce highly nutritious food products. Next. Snail farming is another cutting-edge technology that we have innovated in this institution. Led by our researchers, we have been able to identify high-value snails, and we have been able to mass produce them. So we have the technologies to mass produce snails for human consumption, for extraction of cosmetic products, for extraction of oil, and even for pharmaceutical products. So this will be an interesting feature that you interact with us more on it. Coconut value chain utilization. All of us from the and even in other areas, we are familiar with the coconut tree. It has been highly underutilized, industrially, but JKUAT is leading the manufacturing chair, which is spearheading coconut value chain and utilization. The chief guest alluded to, he is aware that we have done quite a bit in terms of improving consumption, improving production, improving consumption, processing, and even utilization of this important crop. In the exhibition of coconut, which will amaze you. We have been able to innovate even technologies that make processing of coconut easier for use by the small scale holders and even large scale producers. JKUAT is also leading in value addition of products from other value chains. For example, milk, the dairy value chain. We have for very many years led in value addition of milk into yogurt and related products. And this is one of the richest and the most preferred products in our markets today in the East African region. So you'll be able to see this and interrogate it more. Other products that we have JKUAT has spearheaded and they're in the market are the mango value added products. Mango fruit is a tropical fruit that is of high value nutritionally and has a lot of industrial potential. So we have been able to do value addition of the mango products. Other products are underutilized fruits like the gooseberry fruits. A lot of people who grew up in the tropical regions must have come across this wild fruit, which is very tasty, very nutritious. And you can see we have been able to produce a variety of products from it, from juice to wine, to dried fruits, and even other value-added products. Baobab products. The baobab tree is, we call it the king of the jungle, king of the Sahara. This is a tree that you'll find standing strong in the middle of the sub-Saharan regions, dry areas. But this is a tree that we've discovered has a lot of potential. It is a very rich, nutritious plant. The fruit is very rich. It has a lot of health benefits. And as a university, we have come up with innovations to package all these benefits into products that can add value to your health. So you will be able to interact with us on that as well. Mushroom farming is something we pride in for a very, very long time in this university. We have been able to use biotechnology to come up with species that are high producing, resistant to disease, and are nutritious for use and easy to farm. So this product we are very proud of that you'll also be able to see at our exhibition. Propagation of other seedlings. JKUAT is a place to go when it comes to seedlings. We have acres of different seedlings, from fruits and vegetables to fruit trees to trees to plant in your garden, ornamental trees, and even indigenous trees to reforest your garden. So we have been the place of choice for the East African region and the South African region, where we are able to ship our seedlings all over. And we are using cutting edge technology to propagate the seedlings, to mass produce the seedlings, and even deliver to your place of choice. So this is something that you'll be able to see at the exhibitions. The Shujaa tractor is one of the technologies that we are very proud of as an institution as well. The Shujaa tractor has an engine capacity of 10.5 horsepower, plowing at the rate of 2 acres per day, and a fuel consumption rate of 6 liters per acre. Cost of plowing an acre is Kenya shillings 1,500, that's about $15. This is equivalent to the cost of ox plowing, and is far much cheaper than the cost of ordinary tractor, charging $30 to $40 per acre. This tractor was designed by JKUAT. It can be used to do various farming activities, ranging from plowing, harrowing, ridging, planting to transportation. And it is actually a gender-sensitive tractor. It was designed to promote farm mechanization and hence reduce dependence and unreliable animal draft power or human labor. This is a tractor we are very proud of, that we are mass producing, and you can interact with us on it and be able to make your orders. And with that, gentlemen, I wish to welcome you after the plenary session to join the room and be able to interact with our technical team and our researchers in that room. They will respond to your question and queries. Thank you very much. Discover JKUAT on Facebook, on Twitter, we are Discover JKUAT, and any other social media handles, we are at Discover JKUAT. Our website is www.jkuat.ac.ke, and you can always get more information. And with this, we wish to now declare the opening ceremony closed, and we move on to the plan one. But before we go there, I can give you a quick summary of the program. Immediately now, we are going into a plenary up to 10:50. It will all be held in this plenary room. Immediately, or breakout rooms will be opened, and we will have 5 breakout. We'll have a plenary session on water, energy, environment, and climate change. A breakout room, another breakout room 2 on engineering technologies and built environment, another breakout room on policy and governance and entrepreneurship, another breakout room on agricultural sciences and technologies, and a breakout room on exhibitions. Those 5 will run up to lunchtime. Immediately after lunch at 2 East African time, we will have a plenary session for one speaker who is based in the US, Washington, DC. It is very early morning in DC now, so she could not join us for this session. So she will be joining us at 2 p.m. Kenya time, which will be 7 a.m. Washington, DC time. So Dr. Dolta Verna is a lead economist for the World Bank, and she'll be giving us a keynote speech at 2 p.m. So kindly after lunch, we'll all be here for a plenary session. After that, we'll break out to parallel sessions. Tomorrow morning, we will start with a plenary session, which will then be followed by breakout sessions, as indicated in the program sent to you. We will end tomorrow morning with a closing ceremony at 3 p.m., at 3:30 p.m. East African time, and you are all welcomed. So that is a brief. Kindly contact or be in touch with your program so that you can pick where you need to be at what time. And now at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome the chair of the plenary session 1, Professor Willis Owino, to take over and proceed. Welcome, Professor Owino.
Thank you, Dr. Kenyuru, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. All protocols observed, it is my pleasure to invite all of you to our first plenary session, which will comprise of 3 keynote presentations. And the first presentation will be given by our chief guest, Professor Oyawa. And the title of his keynote is Promoting the Adoption, his title is Science, Technology, and Innovation as Frontline Force in Response to Pandemics. just to introduce him briefly, though I know he was introduced before, Professor Yawa is currently the Director General of the National Commission for Science, Technology, and Innovation. And he's someone who is endowed with vast experience in administration, research, and scholarly work. Professor Yawa is a full professor of civil engineering of JKUAT. He has a PhD in civil engineering, and he also holds an executive MBA. He was the first substantive principal of Multimedia University College, and thereafter the first acting vice chancellor of the same university. He has served as the deputy commission secretary in charge of administration and finance at the Commission for the University Education. He was the first acting principal of the pioneering College of Engineering and Technology, QUATEC at JKUAT. He was the first director of SmartTech. This is a research center for sustainable construction materials. And he has also been the chair of management board of the SmartTech. And he was also the director of JKUAT Konza City. Among other things, he has also been the chair of civil construction and environmental engineering department at JKUAT. Now he holds quite a number of other positions, and it is our pleasure to invite him this morning to give us his first keynote. Welcome, Professor Yao.
Yes, thank you, Willis. Have you allowed me to share? Can I share my screen? Screen share. Let me try. Is it visible?
Yes, yes.
It is, eh?
Yeah, you just need to put it on full screen.
Okay.
And Prof, just before, for our participants, if you have any questions to Professor Oyawa, we suggest that you share it in the chat. And then after he's done, then we'll be able to kind of highlight or rather ask him some of the questions that will have been captured on the chat. Welcome, Prof.
Yes, so is this on the white screen? Is it visible on your side?
Yes, it is visible on my side.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll try to skip a number of slides so that I may shorten the time. I'm being called on to some other matter that I have to at least be able to roll out some slides. Yeah, so the topic that we discussed, I think, with the conference organizers was the STI as a frontline force in response to the pandemics. And I was just taking the data yesterday. I Googled the data, and as of yesterday, 24th March 2021, there were about 125 million cases. But the worrying thing is the deaths are now approaching 2.8 million. About 1 million have recovered. In Kenya, I think is also worrying. I think the total deaths are now around 2,000. Deaths, even one death becomes an issue of great concern to anybody. So it's something which is quite serious. And the other impacts which I thought also a university like JKUAT and other universities might need to start planning for in the coming days, taking note that this COVID, we're not sure when it will end, or if at all it will end, or it will become endemic, as the experts call it. Some data is being released in the US that indicates that about 4 out of 10 adults have reported symptoms of anxiety and stress, suicidal tendencies, excessive use of drugs, and that's for the youth. And taking note that universities actually have, the bastion of universities is actually the students and faculty that are there. This is something that as a country, as institutions of higher learning, that we need to start preparing for. The mental health issues are critical, and probably they are not being considered now, but are indeed very, very critical. So that's the data which is out there. I'm just throwing it out there that we really need to think about the mental health. We might have focused on other areas which are priority, but the mental health is not visible. It's almost like the COVID itself, that somebody might be walking there looking healthy, but is so stressed up that in the next minute, you might not know what he or she might do. So we want to believe that COVID has affected what we're calling our STI sector in so many ways. It has affected the STI ecosystem through the lockdowns. and the immediate effects on research institutions like universities. I think you have been disrupted. The research is disrupted. You cannot be able to access your labs. There is reduced mobility and so forth. So those ones I'll skip. Businesses have come to a halt. And as we're speaking, I think now there's some people undertaking research on just the impact of COVID on Kenya, and it's quite severe. Actually, it's almost like 95% of the youth, the livelihood of the youth have been affected. They either have to change how they've been earning their livelihoods. There'll be increased cases of maybe like burglaries and so forth. So it needs actually a forward planning as soon and as fast as could be possible. The agencies to find solutions for the COVID-19 health challenge and severity have had important effects on the SDA ecosystem, which we consider to be positive in the long run. I think the policies have come out very many. The rate of approvals of researchers, we have seen like the vaccine normally takes very many years to be, several years, not very many, but several years before a vaccine is said to be proper. But because of the situation, we have seen the rollout and the risks that are involved. So some aspects of the COVID-19 are positive, are enhancing other areas, whereas the main impact is actually very, very negative. So I would want to just mention again very quickly that the COVID-19 has presented what you might call unfettered prospect for countries and institutions like JKUAT to increase investments in research, science, technology, and innovation for the betterment of society. Research is an enabler of science, technology, and innovation. And it's one area which, as NACOSTI, we have a lot of interest in the act that establishes NACOSTI and Kenya and NRF. There was a provision that the country would reserve around 2% of its GDP for research, but that is something which we're still debating because of the limited funds. We will have to think of other ways of getting increased research funding. I know if my colleague, Dr. Jemima, was around, she would say that the funding for NRF has considerably gone down, considerably. And I think that's due to an unavoidable situation. The revenue collection and the impacts of COVID are massive. So as researchers and think tanks in the country and regionally, you have to come out of the box and think of ways of getting more funding. Now, during the pandemic, and this again is out there, it has been observed that developed countries that leveraged on emerging technologies, e.g. the big data, the AI, the robotics, and so forth, have been more successful in limiting the number of fatalities. And these are countries like the Singapore, the Malaysias. They were able to use digital monitoring of people and limited a number of deaths in that country. In contrast, countries that lacked on technological savviness have had to rely on ancient, slow, and painful methods. And we know them, the lockdowns. And some of these methods were actually used maybe, is it 100 years ago during the Spanish flu and so forth. They're painful, they're the only way out. And that calls on to an institution like JKUAT, which was established specifically for technology, to really find means of upping its game. It's an opportunity to take the front line, and I'm happy to inform, I think even the VCN team, that a number of universities, the offspring of JKUAT, the KUT, is coming out very strongly in terms of technology, but the mother should not allow itself to be overtaken. I think it should remain the broader mother and the one who is more visible in terms of technological savviness. So that is what is being seen out there, that the use of technology is extremely important at this particular time, and hence the need for more funding, I would believe, to institutions like JKUAT, which are focusing on technology and other things. Now, the pandemic, I'm just skipping some areas. The pandemic has highlighted the importance of technology and innovation as a first responder, and that's what I was talking about. The use of robots in the treatment of patients. If you are monitoring what was happening in Italy when the rate of deaths was very, very, very high, and the doctors were even scared of getting into the rooms, they had to use robotics. And I think they're still using robotics to go into the rooms, take the necessary details of a patient, talk to the patient. So it has been very, very successful. It reduced the amount of deaths. And the other day, we even saw, I think, a donation to our Minister for Health on robotics. It's good that the VC's representative for SDA is right into this. This is right in his field. And it is time that we see some of the great minds in this area of robotics, the AI, really come out in the country. It is the route to go. We have no other choice. We might not be endowed to go into the details of the scientific, what is right inside how to make this robotics, but we can use them. We can use them, just like the young man who came up with the M-Pesa service. So there are these things which are there, and I've just see a photograph of a patient lying on a bed there, and there's a robot which is doing almost the many things that a doctor would have done. And that has saved lives. It made it quite convenient. You're seeing also there a drone airlifting medicine to areas that I think was in China when they had the first wave and there was a lot of panic and there was a total lockdown. They had to use the drones, the robotics to do that. So this is an area which one of the key resolutions that was made in the symposium in November last year, where the cabinet secretary and the PS were there. So some of the areas which we will be giving what we call policy briefs that universities need to pick up on some of these emerging areas in whichever way that we can, but we need to focus on what is happening globally. 3D printing is something which I know with my colleague Professor Kua, we were in Japan some years back, and at that time it looked strange. Now it's like the thing of the moment. And just the house that you're seeing there has been done through 3D printing. And I've been telling my students in civil engineering that very soon they will be obsolete because within a day, the Chinese are able to print that house. And that really speaks again into the COVID scenario where you need emergency shelter, you need emergency hospitals. The other things that are coming, genetic engineering, and I'll be talking later on this because I know JKUAT has an interest in this. There are these things that are coming that we used to say is not for the third world, or it's not for the developing countries. The time has come, we have no choice. We have to partner. We can't do them alone. We have to find our ways. And the leading researchers, and like Professor Maria Bukusa there, all of you there, I think you have to find a way of linking up with the global community to be able to bring something of good benefit to the country and Wanjiku. So we are saying the contribution of SDA in the face of COVID can be seen in several areas. In research and development to understand the disease, that has been the basic, there's been a rush. NACOSTI as the one licensing research, we have had to up our game so that we're able to license research within 3 or 4 days, especially on COVID, because the speed has been very fast. And for those of you who have tried our systems lately, you would agree with me that we have tried to fast track the approvals of for research licensing. So the STI sector has also contributed in the management of critical supplies and equipment, such as diagnostic equipment, mechanical ventilators. Would really want to up or to bring together the teams that are working on mechanical ventilators. There's a lot of silo system, great teams working, but nobody knowing what is happening on the other side. And therefore, we'll be calling again on the universities and the research institutions. We find a way of creating what now they're calling the research consortia. It is the way to go. You create a team of research consortia. And if I'm not wrong, even in the recent awards of funding by NRF, they are going the way of research consortia, so that at the end of it, there's a product that comes out which directly benefits the country. So the STS sector has also helped in the economic recovery with the development of digital platforms for health, education, and work at distance. We are now able to communicate and undertake this conference because of digital improvements that have happened. And these are some of the contributions of the STS sector. That's why we are calling it a first responder. It's right at the front. It's not a human being. The first responder normally would be a human, human in nature, but it's like a mini human being. What STA is doing. So it's becoming apparently obvious that it's likely to be a new normal. I'm not an expert in medicine, but they're calling it might end up being like a common cold flu, the endemic. And for those like engineers who normally plan for the worst scenario, we always think about the negatives. What if? So I would propose that we start thinking of the scenario that suppose this doesn't go away. How will the university education continue? How will the great, I've seen and I've been involved in quite a number of the innovations in JKUAT. How will these great innovations, the tractor, how will they be able to impact on the country under the circumstances? That is something that I throw to all of us, and that the opportunities are there. And one we are saying is that the unprecedented uptake of digital tools, the AI is fast and moving fast. South Africa, by the way, has formed a national strategy on the harnessing of what they're calling the fourth industrial revolution. It's the other way, the other word they're using for it is frontier technologies. Kenya is always in great competition and very close to South Africa. I'm throwing it to, again, the great minds that are here, both locally and regionally, especially our diaspora, to help us have something that is up to the game. And sometimes we say, just imagine that the heavens was not kind and the kind of things happening in the US, if maybe our body or immune system wasn't that strong, what would have happened to Africa? Yeah, I think there's an element of the heavenly because we were not really fully prepared. And with what has happened, I think now we should move ahead and figure out how to prepare. So what is coming out, if I might just say, is that the need for collaborations is extremely, extremely important. I would plead to the universities from where we sit now that the way to go is some consortia, forming groups, and the consortia should be multi-pronged, multidisciplinary. It should involve all the players. It should have the policy. It should have policymakers. It should have the government. It should have the civil society. And if you look at this model, which has been proposed over the years, time has now come that you have to pick it up. Either the triple helix or the quadruple helix. We would encourage proposals or work that has the university there, the industry, the government, and even now they're saying the quadruple, the civil society must be engaged. So that by the time you finish your research, like now there is a research years program, Professor Kenyuru will not be looking for the industry after the research is done. They are part of it. And when you just finish, they're rolling out on the products that have come out of the research years program. So we will really persist on this. We will really shout this loud. And we pray that a top university like JKUAT will help us on the strategic linkages that need to happen. Other things, other players, as I said, there are a lot of other minds thinking on how now research is no longer just research for publication, but it has to end up in innovation, which directly ends up to the people. If you check, there is now a talk of innovation complexity index, that your research might be judged in terms of how can it lead to an innovation out there. It's not just a great research until it comes out and is visible. So researchers have to reorient themselves in such a way that until you're able to demonstrate, and this is where we are very weak as professors, by the way. We do great researches, but how now to go into the social aspects of convincing the other person to take it becomes a big issue. So at NACOSTI also, we are supposed to propagate STEM education. We are adding A. I think the world is moving A so that it is STEM. It's no longer STEM. It's STEM, is science, technology, arts or humanities, engineering and mathematics, because the engineers are very weak in communicating what they have. You look at the third model there which talks of innovation ecosystem stakeholder model, that is coming from MIT. It's some of the things that they're working now that it has to be holistic. You can no longer afford to do your research and look for the industry, then the industry looks for the government for policy, then all these players have to be under one house the moment you start a research. And I would believe that we could walk the talk with the research years program. The MOE one is concluded, but the research years program, we can, even as Professor Kenyuru is moving on, remodel it, bring in other players just around you. And then you go beyond the research chair, you create the research consortia, which is now in the National Research Priorities Framework, which I will also shortly talk about. About NACOSTI, just that you may see our role, we have about 17 functions in the SDA Act. I used to think NACOSTI is part of the Universities Act and University Fraternity. Until I went there, they have very powerful mandates, which due to transition, they have only utilized maybe 1/10 of it. But the key number one, which I would want to highlight, is NACOSTI has the mandate to develop in consultation with stakeholders the priorities in scientific, technological, and innovation activities in Kenya in relation to the economic and social policy of the government. So if all was going well, even what is being taught in the universities, even what you're going to research on, like research years, should have come from a government document, a strategy paper or a sessional paper that tells you that this is the direction. Currently, that function number one is being captured well in MTP3, the medium-term plan of the national government, but it should have come from strict stakeholder engagement. So we are going that route in the very near future so that we have a common document to know which are the areas that is going to be a lot of focus. And it will be included even in performance contracting as part of monitoring, because it will directly affect the countries. For those in countries like in the US, the SDA Council is actually chaired by the president himself. Trump was chairing, now it's chaired by Biden. In Japan, the SDA Council is chaired by the Prime Minister, the same in Malaysia, because those countries are moved because of technology, and we're all aware of that. We have been an agricultural country, but without technology to really harness that agricultural produce, like the machines we're demonstrating there, then we might not go far, and time is not with us. So we have to remodel a lot of things that we're doing, and that's what COVID has presented. So I will not read the other 17 functions. I'll quickly just go to an area of interest. One of our key activities is to establishment of research institutes. And I think right now we have about 24 accredited or registered research institutions. We believe universities are research institutions, but under the regulation of COE. So we don't dwell on that. But there are key areas that we are required to undertake. If I might just take you back, there is a place where we are required to provide an annual report on to the cabinet secretary, or annual report on the scientific system in the country. Yes, number 14, that NACOSTI is required to annually review the progress in scientific research systems and submit a report of its findings and recommendations to the cabinet secretary. Again, we'll be coming to you, and when we send the questionnaire, please allow us, is our mandate, is a requirement that any research being undertaken inside this country, we are supposed to document what it's all about and bring peers like you together to sit together to advise the cabinet secretary, who through that is able to provide this to the cabinet as a cabinet memo. It's a very, very important function, which, as I said, due to the transition at NACOSTI in the last 3 or 4 years, has not been undertaken. So it'll be coming to sending a data form. And the advanced team actually will be WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization is coming. We're working together. It's coming to collect data with from all the 73 universities and 24 research institutions and TVET institutions, so that there's a pool of what is happening in the country. So that number 14 is directly linked to all the institutions. We also closely are supposed to work with the counties. You look at number 3, advise the national and county governments on the science, technology, innovation policy. If you look at that, our thinking, and we'll share this with you, is to find a way that universities in the various counties can be mandated to participate in county development programs. Strategies, almost like what is happening in Tanzania, that if there is construction happening in the CBD, then there needs to be a clause that insists that the engineers or agriculturists from JKUAT or UAN will be able to participate in those things. So we again call upon you to work with us so that we're able to show the value of our professors, the value of our dons, that they participate in some of the meetings, in the programs of the county. So we're supposed to advise the national and county governments on the science, technology, innovation policy, including the general planning and assessment of the necessary financial resources. We cannot do that on our own. We can only do that with the help of dons, the professors that are out there. And this is an opportunity to increase your resource mobilization kitty, because the student numbers have been dwindling, the exchequer is limited. So this is part of thinking out of the box. Then accredit research institution. I'll just pick the one which I would think is, of course, number 9 is in consultation with the National Research Fund, sponsor national scientific and academic conferences. Because of COVID, we have not been able to host what they call the Science and Technology Week, but we're still thinking of it. It could end up actually being combined with what used to be the university's exhibition. We'll again call on you to give us ideas, put it together. We are peer-based. We don't make decisions, but we allow our peers to come with ideas that can be concretized. Then, yes, I think that's as much as the functions. There are many, and you can get the act and you can read. Then the other one is in terms of research institutions. As I said, there are about 23, I think they're 25 now. Public is about 8, private 4, international is 11. We register institutions, great institutions like ISIPE, the ILRIS, There are quite a number of them. And we would really want in the formation of consortia that some of these international agencies partner with universities based on where you are locality. If it's around Nairobi, how can we have universities in such institutions, the government, the SAGAs partner together? I know we are now speaking with the National Construction Authority, whose CEO, by the way, is a former student of JKUAT. And you can imagine what he told me, the amount of research funds that they've been given, which they're actually looking for partners to work with. Ours will be to connect, like such kind of teams, to work with universities. We are also moving close to Kenya. I think Kenya is probably Kenya National Highways Authority, have a lot of funding. A number of these sagas have a lot of funding for research. And if you just consulted and we sat together, I think we'll be able to get on that. The other one is, I'll move quickly to the licensing. We are mandated to license research, all researchers in the country. And I know JKUAT was affected during the last inspection by the Commission for University Education. One of the things in those, I think in the programs that they required was, where was the licensing for some of the programs? And since then, I'm very happy to report that we have had people call us, JKUAT students call us, that they're not able to undertake the research until they get licensing. So we played with universities, and we have mentioned in other fora that it would be our best interest if all the students, master students, PhD students, the moment their proposals are approved through the system, before you grant them the letter to proceed or even allocate them supervisors formally, you insist on the research license from NACOSTI. Now, licensing is a very tricky thing because you would ask, why do we do licensing? Licensing enables some peers, fellow peers, not NACOSTI per se, but fellow peers to check on key areas and captured it there, whether the research is beneficial to the country. Because when you are in a public institution like JKUAT, you are using national resources, public resources to conduct research. Are you just conducting research for a foreign country? Or are you conducting a research for your own individual personal benefit? The other one is on security matters. Are you creating COVID? Is a student creating COVID in the laboratory? That's a great area of concern now. I wouldn't want to mention some of the past things that appear in the newspaper about some of our students, but you can imagine when they come back and they start playing around, because they're very, very intelligent students, playing around with chemicals. How are we sure that that chemical will not hurt us? So it's becoming extremely important that literally all researchers, including engineering, to be approved, because even the world now is changing, that when you're going to apply for those global research grants, and you list your last 5 publications or 5 publications in the last 1 or 2 years, they will ask why this research is licensed. We have seen people, by the way, who have lost out on research funding simply because what they were quoting as the references did not have a license permit. So I'm happy at least record that JKUAT is insisting all their masters and PhD students. I don't know whether it's all faculty or only some other faculties, but it would be good if you insist through the Institutional Research Ethics Committee, which I think JKUAT has, that all researchers must be escalated there, checked up in terms of whether it's beneficial to the country, but most importantly, the security and how it affects the environment. That's why research must be licensed, and this is considered by the peers. In the ethics matters is captured there. I don't have to read there, the role of ethics committee. So we say that like of last year, the other financial year, we received a total of about 6,000 requests for licensing. The numbers are increasing since the post-COVID. And we used to process these licenses, maybe the limit given to us was about 30 days, as in our charter, but we are endeavoring to deliver them in 3 days. Some of them in 24 hours, especially the COVID ones. So I would say if you have any challenges and have been receiving direct, where we have bottlenecks, direct, my phone is an open phone. People texting me, I submitted this, I'm having issues, and we're able to sort it out very fast. So licensing should not be an issue. If you look at the number of licenses that we get, the majority of applications for licensing fall under the social sciences. Engineering is just 1%. ICT is 0.6%. Those are key areas. So Professor Kwa, I would urge the engineers, the ICT, because when you also come for licensing, we put your research in the map. So when there's an advisory on where funding should be, then we're able to know that there's great ICT research happening in Kimathi University or Moi University and so forth. We are like the go-between between most institutions with the donors, with even the government, with the sagas. So when we get to know what you're doing, we'll be able to assist as much as we can. The other area of interest and concern is NACOSTI is mandated under the SDA Act, which says that that research findings and information regarding research systems shall be stored or disseminated in a way or in a manner as prescribed by the Commission, and that's NACOSTI. There's a big problem of predatory journals, and we believe that the Act mandates us, jointly with the Ministry, the Directorate of Research, Science and Technology, to commence the process of accrediting journals. And in accrediting journals, we are proposing 2 levels, 2 tiers. They are the well-known journals like Scopus, Shimago, and the rest. Those ones are obvious, we just adopt. But we think we could do what South Africa is doing, that now the local journals have to go through a system where they get accredited. I would ask a situation where staff has come for an interview, for promotion, and somebody has 10 journals in the last 1 year, 10 peer-reviewed journal applications. In some journals which you are not so sure, then one has, one's paper has been accepted, just one for the year in Nature and Science, or in a Scopus journal, or in, so how do you evaluate? I know the universities have that challenge, and this one urgent area we need to work on. The University of Nairobi had commenced this. They're just standard basic requirements for a local journal. Like now, JKUAT has a journal there. It needs to go through a process where it is recorded and registered that this is acceptable, and it becomes like a tier 2 level journal, so that we also encourage journals from national institutions. South Africa has done it very well, and you might want to check. Otherwise, you'll have promotions in a way that might not really reflect the true picture. So we'll work on that. Finally, I'm also concluding a very, very important area or something is happening right now. The Commission for University, not Commission for University, the Commission for Science, Technology, Innovation, NACOSTI is mandated under the SDA Act to set priorities in scientific, technological, and innovation activities in Kenya. That is our function number 1. And in the process, before I even went there, I've been there now 10 months, NACOSTI, in consultation with stakeholders, I hope JKUAT was involved, developed the National Research Priorities Framework, which were informed by the prevailing government socioeconomic policies. The National Research Priorities was launched by the Cabinet Secretary in 2019, and it has 3 levels of governance. They're supposed to be at the top, the National Research Steering Committee, chaired by the PS, State Department for University Education. They're supposed to be the 2nd level, the Delivery Secretariat, almost like the Vision 2030, chaired by NACOSTI. And below that, there's what should be of great interest to universities, the formation of research consortia in the Big 4 agenda. And the 5th one is academic research. This document, again, can be downloaded from our website. I would want to inform participants that the first meeting of the National Research Steering Committee was held, I think, 2 weeks ago by the PS, State Department for University Education. And in that framework, it was a meeting of PSS, chaired by our PS. There was the PS Agriculture, there was the PS Industrialization, there was the PS what's the other, Housing, there was the PS, even National Treasury. And what the first meeting, what NACOSTI is the Secretariat, what was being guided that there's a likelihood that research funding might be directed through the National Research Steering Committee. And in this National Research Steering Committee, even NRF is required to fund research as determined by that National Steering Committee. So it will be convened by the Principal Secretary in charge of Science, Technology, and Innovation. So this is a new development which needs to be picked up because the representative of National Treasury has indicated that a lot of research has been distributed, research funding has been distributed to state agencies, and sometimes they via that fund to use in other activities. So they would want one way of ensuring that the research funding is actually used for funding. So it's an area of great interest. This is just the framework. There's the National Research Steering Committee, chaired by the PS. It's a committee of PSS. There's the Delivery Secretariat, chaired by NACOSTI, and universities by there are supposed to be presented. Kenya is there, NRF is there. Then there's the 5 sector working groups, what we're calling the research consortia. And Professor Kwai, already you are seeing there's a sector working group on manufacturing. So I'd throw the challenge. I don't want to be seen as being biased, but I'll throw the challenge. If you can work out your group, form a team of other players from other universities, from the industry, from the mainstream Ministry of Industrialization, we could have the first research chair working group under that one, because this, you already have funding in that area. We're also hoping the other research chair, Moi University, which is dealing with health, can create a team, a great team, retired veterans, a great team which is acceptable to the National Research Steering Committee. Then this team will funding, we talk of any manufacturing, funding for with regard to manufacturing, the word is might be directed towards that end. So this is a new development which you can really pick up. And then the final sector is directly relating to universities. They're calling it academic research and development. And this will be chaired by one of the universities or the State Department for Research and Technology to form this. So we are in a hurry to form this research consortia. It's part of our performance contract, and we are just highlighting it. This is how the document talks about. It talks of food and nutrition security. The ministry in charge of agriculture fisheries will be the lead. Then there'll be research institutions. Then there'll be Ministry of Health, then the county governments, and then universities. Universities are everywhere. You talk of affordable housing, the same. The ministry in charge of housing will take the lead. You talk of academic research, the ministry in charge of university education will take the lead. So we have those 5 consortia which we seek your brains to move through. We want to also mention as the things that NACOST is doing. We have mentioned the research years, and I'm highlighting there that JKUAT is doing very well on this. You could think of escalating it. And I'm sure you would not regret if you think of escalating on that one. And why we want to say we are highlighting the emphasis, putting emphasis on STIs is best if you check on the global rankings of university. 60% of the marks is about technology and science. You go to Times Higher Education ranking, you go to Shanghai ranking. In fact, Shanghai ranking, 90% is about technology. It's about Nobel, those institutions that award the Nobel laureates and awards and patentings and so forth. So an university worth its repute, almost over 70% of its activity should be on the research. But I know we are limited right now in the country. Now, the other areas of great interest, this is of interest to JKUAT, I know right now, and other institutions. NACOST is the national focal point of the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. We have been receiving applications for research funding there. They do not grant research funding unless your proposal is verified and approved by the national focal point. This year, when I just joined in, they encouraged us that they are very excited about having a regional research center in Kenya on biotechnology. JKUAT, I know, is very, very interested on this. And we thought it was only JKUAT or 1 or 2, but as I'm speaking now, I think we put out a call and received quite a number of applications. I think almost 7, 8 applications. I would tell you through ICJ, they have formed a review team of, I think, 8 professors of repute, globally, retired, emeritus, and also a team. I cannot talk much, but just say that I hope for the best in this. But there are 7 great proposals on this one from 7 institutions, and I think you included. So we can only say let the best win, but I'm sure whoever wins will really benefit from this program. So NACOST jointly with the ICJ put out a call, and there have been submissions. The submissions are now under review. And what I'm told by the center is that the best 3, because now this will be desktop review, but the best 3 within the next, by April, May, the team from Italy will visit and check the physical facility that are there in this institution. They really mean business on this one. So I wish the Kenyan universities well, because this will not just be a Kenyan center, it will be a regional center. The other one is NACOST DG, is also the national focal point of AFRA. AFRA is affiliated to the International Atomic Agency. They also requested us, but within a very short time span, to put out a call on what they're calling research designated centers, very similar to ICJ, where they can direct funding We put out a call within a few days and received applications from UIN, Kenya Bureau of Standards, and a few other agencies. That one, we are not evaluating ourselves. They are evaluating directly in Vienna, in Vienna, Austria. So we will wait for the outcome, but again, we pray that one of our institutions will be able to pick up that. Other programs of interest, Nakosti is working with WIPO on intellectual property matters. So WIPO consultant will be coming soon to all the 73 universities to collect data which will help them assist. We are working with the Africa Center for Technology Studies and the World Bank in preparing the SDA roadmap for SDGs. If it was not for COVID, the key agenda, global agenda, was actually SDGs. And even with the COVID, SDGs still remain an issue. In fact, what is being said now that COVID has brought in the need to fast track this matter of SDGs, which cuts across. We are working in collaboration with UNESCO on STEM education and other things. So we can form a number of partnerships and seek grants from the EU, which will be of benefit to the institution. We also the representative of the country in the East African Science and Technology Commission, very similar to IUCA. IUCA is for universities, STECO is for the science and technology sector, and they are all under the East African community. So this an area also which I think it has some benefits, direct benefits to the universities, and I know the universities are currently represented by the two VCs representatives, Professor Musao, Mungo Kisao, and the other one is the chair. The chair is the VC Seku is also representing us there. We are also the national focal point for Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. Kenya is blessed with one of the centers that checks on, you call it tectonics. If you explode something on the ground or if there's an earthquake, we're able to, the great machine that was donated there is able to be detected. This is being done, Nakosti delegated this to University of Nairobi, but you're trying to upscale this to other areas. So a lot of things are out there, opportunities, which depending on how you'll be able. The last one, I think, is we're also the national focal point for a very important area now, the Biological Weapons Convention. It's a legally binding treaty. Kenya is a signatory, and we are fortunate that His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Cleophas Mailu was elected the chair of the state parties for 2020 and I think 2021. And we have just written to all the universities, research institutions, various sectors, including the national intelligence, to give us nominees as Kenya works on what they're calling the confidence building measures. This is an area of great interest now, especially in the COVID, because it's a public safety issue, it's a national security issue, and I'm happy to report that I received nominees from the VC on this, and we hope they'll be able to update the institutions on what is happening here. But it's an area which is of interest. A lot of funding is being directed towards there. There have been a lot of rumors about COVID, and we can only get to know what is happening from this expertise. But the teams there, we're also hoping to have a team, a core team, which will be able to assist the universities to ensure that your labs are secure. There are certain labs that you have which might need to have round the clock, 24-hour observation, depending on what is being manufactured inside there. So this is the direction I think the country and the world we're heading to. So the team will be undertaking confidence building measures where there's a lot of research activities. Again, that is visible in our website. I just want to say in conclusion that COVID-19 has reaffirmed the vital role of STI, that is science, technology, and innovation, in evolving solutions to mitigate the virus, while at the same time cushioning the impact on households as a first responder. So STI is actually a first responder, right at the front line, the technology that are there. And then advances in science, technology, and innovation remain the game-changing factor to mitigate against widespread effects of pandemics. We have observed there's a lot of fragmentation of research, and therefore the ministry has launched the all-inclusive national research priorities framework, which will bring all of us together and based on national agenda and priorities. There's need to invest in more strategic and focused collaborations, and need for universities to invent to be at the forefront of technology. As Nakosti will walk the talk with you, for those that are interested, and we're trying to move very, very fast because the pandemic is also moving very fast and mutating. Thank you very much. I might have taken a little bit more time, but thank you again for invitations. So chair of the session, with the permission, if there are questions, because I have to leave, maybe they could be, I could take them up in the next 5 minutes. Others, we can engage in the chat. But back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Yawa, for that presentation. We'll only have maybe just 2 pressing questions. And the first is that you've stressed the issue of research collaboration and funding. And you've rightfully said that currently the government really funding for research has really gone down, of course, due to the challenges that are taking place at the macro level. But then you've also mentioned that there's funding with some of these semi-autonomous government institutions, and they have research priorities. Is there any effort or a platform whereby you can bring universities and some of these sagas together, or even encourage the industry or the private sector to be able to bring them together such that the researchers or the universities can take up some of this research funding? Because you find that maybe the institution has funding, but they really don't know who can do the work. So we really need kind of a platform that we know where is the expertise that is able to carry out a specific funding. That is one. Then the second one is the issue of licensing or research permits, especially for postgraduate students. There is this feeling that why can't you just license JKUAT as a research institution such that any postgraduate student in JKUAT can then, registered in JKUAT, can then do the research, other than expecting each and every postgraduate student to apply for a research permit. I think those are the most pressing at the moment.
Yes, very good questions. I'll try. As I said, I've been there 10 months, but I'll try. On the first one, I think is a very interesting one in terms of research collaboration. I would kindly request that you try to download a document in our website today, maybe within the day, on the National Research Priorities Framework. It is actually a government document, a government policy, so it's not optional. It's based on the national agenda, the Big Four agenda, +1. So if implemented, of course, with the support with and the voice of the university, universities have a voice, and it's a very powerful voice. When you go the other direction, even when we have a law or a policy, we always get challenged. If we implement that framework, and I told you the first meeting just occurred in the 9th of March, then the problem of sagas will be sorted out. The representative of the National Treasury in that meeting informed us that there are sagas. The National Construction Authority, by the way, has 53 million for research annually. We have also engaged the Kenya Building Research. Of course, those are my areas of interest. I can imagine the other areas that are there. Kenya National Kenha Authority has quite some money. And you can see the kind of projects that they deal with. They're the billions, multi-billion projects. So getting some little percent of that is not a big deal for them. Now, if you support us implement this research consortia, you will have them there. Because if it comes to manufacturing, all the sagas in the manufacturing sector will have to spend their money based on the approval of the research consortia in manufacturing. If it's on agriculture, where I think our colleague, Professor Boga, is there, and he sent a representative for that meeting, all the research on agriculture will focus on what is priorities in agriculture. And that research consortia is the one which will even guide on which sub-themes needs to be done. And when we started in places like Japan, that is what we're doing. There's a national agenda, and all universities actually have to follow a national agenda. You cannot just wake up and say, I'm going to do my own research. So by the time a student is even writing a proposal in master's or PhD, the professor will tell him or her that this is what the national agenda speaks of, go into this area. But you see, when our students now, they are told, go and come up with the topic. If he decides to research on gold as a construction material, there's nothing you can do. Yeah? So that national research framework, the crafters of that one, I think did a very good job. We just request the 73 universities, especially the 3 public universities, to help us implement that without fail. And then that funding will come. So the sagas actually should be at the other end of implementing your research fundings. If it's on roads, once it's done, then you implement it there. So the cure for that, as of now, I think, is strictly implementing that national research framework. Right down up to the master's student, even up to the final year undergraduate students, it will work. Then you're talking about licensing of, of the research. In the Act, when the Act was being made, and I'm told that the universities were supposed to be also licensed or accredited as research institutions. But I think with the normal politics, they said, no, we are too superior for that, so we don't want to be licensed as a research institution. So they were left on their own. And therefore, it's the other way around. But that being said and done, the idea could be very good if it can be picked up, so long as each university will establish what they're calling the Institutional Ethics Review Committee, Ethics and Scientific Committee. So that in the first stage, right now, I think the institutions have, I hope JKUAT has the Institutional Ethics Review Committee, but we want to have the Institutional Scientific and Ethics Review Committee. So all researchers, masters, even for staff, must pass through that committee, and that committee is regional. For like the way we do it, if JKUAT has that's such an institution and maybe MKU doesn't have that committee, they will be sending their proposals for approval with that committee. Now that committee is the one which will decide which researchers require to be escalated to NACOSTI for licensing. Because as I told you, licensing checks on national security matters. Yes. So that national security matters cannot be left at the university level. So they will say that this one we think needs to go to a higher level to check the elements of national security, to check the elements of the environment. Yeah. So that is the approach that, that I can give. But there's a need to check what kind of researchers are coming into the country. This COVID thing, there are a lot of international players who want to take samples from the country. They might want to take your sample. You do not know what they're going to do with it. You do not know what data they're going to give out there about our country. So there has to be somebody to check. And again, we have had that pressure, even what you're telling me, is saying exactly from the embassies, trying to say that the researchers from the country should not be evaluated. They say that there's somebody has to check in the name of national interest on those ones. So yes, I would suggest if universities are willing to be licensed, we would support you, because you are the ones who got out of the game. So you can come back in, make sure you have the buy-in of all the 73, and then we got that route. But most important, you have to establish the institutional, scientific, and ethics committee. That will be the first vetting. So they'll say this one, we have checked it, it can stop here, and gives us an annual report. This one must be escalated to a national level to check what it is, especially the ones which deal with human beings, what they're calling the ethics or bioethics, the medicine, even animals now. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Yawa, for that informative presentation. I know there's a number of questions, but we are pressed of time.
Professor Owino, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, Professor Ikua has one burning one touching on regulation.
Okay.
So please allow me, because I'm just in the room. There was a lot of echoing when I wanted to type in. So just allow me just to follow on. That we are very grateful for the speech by Professor Wayawa, and we have picked quite a lot. We are going to run with them. But on this issue of licensing, I wanted him just to clarify. Under the legal notice number 108 of SDA Act SDA Act 2013, 2014, that's on licensing. There is an exemption, and this exemption, as number 4, is regulation shall not apply to persons conducting research at a university or research institute program. Is it in contradiction? What is is it are you
very good, a very good question. There's actually a contradiction there. If you look at that, I've not opened it, but I've read it. There are about 4 sections or clauses there. One, it says the whole country, everybody. Then it exempts the universities. Then below that, it says something else. If you look at below that, it also goes back. My take is that some interested party inserted that number 3. And it means it clashes, because the question which we are putting out, what is the purpose of research licensing? Is to check on issues like on security matters. How can you check yourself? If CUE was doing it, we would be at peace. You need another external party to check that your research, one, is beneficial to the country. You cannot do that yourself. The other one is on the environmental issues. The other one is on those ethical issues. So the assumption, I think, was that CUE will do it. And if CUE is doing it, then you don't need another regulator. But I know CU is not doing it. That's number one. Then number two, in the Health Act, where we come in is when the matters we are doing research focusing on human beings. And that's why we have not really fully implemented it on engineers. I have been at JKUAT and at no time did I ever apply for that. Yeah, but when you, in the Health Act, I think they have an act, when we're dealing with human beings, even for universities, you must. When you're going to get samples from human beings, you're going to do, and the other one, you're going to get human beings, questionnaires, then you must. That's how now that rule contradicts. But now the question comes, and it's good you have in mechanical. In Europe, it's reported that this ventilator thing, many old people have died because they were scared of the ventilator. It's something which mechanical engineers need to think about, that you create an equipment which makes the patient die even before he's put on his face. So they were so scared, the old people were so scared of the ventilator that they refused it. And the process, they died. That's actually recorded. So the question, when you're doing a research on a ventilator, which is going to be put on the face of a human being, does that require an external party to check on it? Those are the questions. Right at the research stage, because once it comes out, now it goes to the other players. But right at the research stage, does it require? So it's a debate now that we really need to do. That same thing, and I'm just expounding a little more because I'm also interested in this. The students in your laboratories, or in our laboratories now, and the JKUATians are very, very intelligent because they have done other things, very advanced things. In the lab, how sure will you be that this student, what the student doing there is correct? And you know you cannot self-check yourself. So we are seeing a scenario where one of the things with your help is to request for deletion of that confusing clause. How sure are you that people in the laboratory are doing what they're supposed to do? How sure are you that some other external agencies have not infiltrated your laboratory and are creating things that are dangerous? You need an external party. And one other area which gives us now the international mandate to even do that is that Biological Weapons Convention. Kenya is a signatory. And the request that I remember calling you on the same, the request that we have done to universities, the confidence building measures is supposed to check if there are any lethal weapons likely to come out of these things. So that's the fact that with the focal point at the international level, at the global treaty level, it means it gives us mandate to literally check whether it's the ventilator, whether it's the food, the banana tissue culture which is being manufactured, is it a weapon? Is it dangerous? So it gives us that authority. But you tell the university that they need to write to us to delete that clause, to recommend Parliament to delete that clause. Thank you very much, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for that response. And just before you leave, Professor Oyawa,
yes,
I'd just like to let you know that we've been joined by our Vice Chancellor, Professor Victoria Ngumi.
Oh, okay.
And it is my pleasure to invite her to say a few remarks just before you leave.
Okay, thank you. I will.
Welcome, Madam VC.
Okay, I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, very clearly, Prof. Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I want to really thank everybody for coming today. I was a bit delayed somewhere else, but I'm glad that the DVC Administration and Finance, Professor Ikua, was able to read my remarks. I don't want to take too much time because my remarks have already been given. Mine is really to welcome you all, the chief guest, Professor Oyawa, who I've listened to, and I've learned so many new things. And I can assure you, like the DVC Administration and Finance has said, we are going to make sure that we really are within the requirements as JKUAT. The only small bell I'd like to ring, Professor Oyawa, and I know I can do that because you're one of us.
Yes.
You are my member.
That's true.
Yes. As we ask our postgraduate students to the research they are doing to be licensed, I hope it will be speeded up so that if a master's degree has 2 years to do his master's and complete, which is in our regulations, it is licensed so that he can complete within the 2 years. or our PhD 3 or 4 years, he's within the 4 years. So that 1 year down the line, he's still not waiting for licensing for his research. That is just a small appeal. To our Thank you. I'd also like to mention, as I now finish my welcome, that this conference, the Jomo Kenyatta University Scientific Conference, is a conference we hold every year. And we thought, discussed as management and Senate, and felt there's the COVID-19 pandemic. We can still use technology to hold this conference. And I'm very excited that we were able to hold it today and tomorrow because it brings together scientists, researchers, dons, thinkers, all of us who are in that category. And we are able to brainstorm and come up with various, even new ideas or solutions to many of the things which are there in our country, our region, and our Africa and the world at large. So mine is to welcome everybody and to request you to feel free to discuss and let us come out with good resolutions at the end of this conference. So to our keynote speakers, to our presenters, to our participants, and all the researchers, ladies and gentlemen, karibuni sana to this conference. Thank you. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Chair, may I respond just before I log out?
Yes, please.
Yeah, one is to thank my VC. Now I speak as a staff of JKUAT. Yes,
Yes.
for having invited me to be here. And I think JKUAT is home. I started there as a TA up to now, so it's home. And wherever you go, home is best. But from the NACOSE side, you have mentioned something very important. I think right now we have the two great linkages, the JKUAT, the research year program, and we are looking forward to the application that was made recently. I would imagine with paucity, if the element of paucity was captured strongly, it should be able to be helpful. But the competition is tight. I would want to tell you, I have to speak now on both sides. So JKUAT, competition is tight. We saw some seven very, very strong proposals, but I think JKUAT is advantage. In terms of research licensing, VC, I would want to assure you that we have since moved to approving these things in 3 or 4 days. You are talking of 2 years, but we are approving them in 3, 4, 5 days. So it does not delay at all, and it's moving. I've got calls from elsewhere saying that it's really fast tracked, and I know JKUAT is one of the great supporters of this. Following that CUE visit, inspection windows are a small issue. We'd want to encourage it because in the process you also get to know when these donors write that there are certain elements of or certain types of funding, we're able to know that JKUAT is doing this. KU is doing this, and so forth. The times have come, as I mentioned in my talk, that we have to collaborate. I don't know whether VC, you are there when I say that something new has come up, and that is the implementation of National Research Priorities Framework,
Yes,
which we have that. Yes, so I think that if whoever maximizes on that, because it's shared at PS level, it will go to the Waziri, it will go up to as a cabinet memo, it will guide on the funding. And we can also get that funding from the SAGAs. There's a lot of research funding in the area where I am. The National Construction Authority has 53 million every year. So, and the Kenya Building Research Institute and the Kenya National Highway Authority, they're all there. So universities that can pick it up. And I've just asked my colleague, DVC administration, if we could expand the research years program, it has a very high chance of really attracting funding. Thank you, Prof, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Wire. We really appreciate the presentation, and the ones that the university will need to take up, will take up for follow-up that will really benefit the university and the research system as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
This time I invite our second keynote presenter, our second keynote presenter is will give a keynote presentation titled Appropriate Research Engagement Methods for Increased Institutional and National Research Collaborations. And this will be given by Professor Meoli Kashoda. As a brief introduction, Professor Kashoda holds a BSc in Electrical Engineering from the University of Nairobi and a PhD in Electronic Systems Engineering from University of Essex in England. He is currently the Executive Director of Kenya Education Network, or KENET. He is a Professor of Information Systems at United States International University, Africa, or USIU, and is a member of the Institution of Electrical and Electronics Engineers and the Institution of Engineering and Technology. Professor Kashoda has quite a lot of research experience, and he has been the principal investigator for a research project measuring the e-readiness of universities in Kenya and East Africa that includes measuring indicators of broadband internet access and affordability. So at this juncture, it is my pleasure to invite Professor Kashoda to give his keynote address. Welcome.
Thank you, Professor Owino. I guess one of the things to let me know is the timekeeping issue, because I can see we have run over the time. Guest of honor, Professor Oyawa, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Ngumi, DVC is present. It's indeed my great honor to have been invited as a keynote speaker to this conference. It gives me great pleasure to just make a few remarks on this topic of research engagement. This topic is really relevant to some of the things that Professor Oyawa has talked about, because it's about engaging the actual researchers. And we shall be describing a few of the methods that we have developed at KENET, and which could also be, which everyone who is advancing research, whether it's a university or a research funding body, needs to have. So, the agenda is going to be very brief, and if there is anything to learn, because we might not have enough time, is that one of the things that we want you to come out of this is to understand KENET as a research and education network organization with a focus on the R. As you know, we are known for connectivity, internet connectivity nationally. But in this particular talk, we'll not speak too much about the education side. We'll speak a lot more on the research side. It's a little different from what was published in the keynote speech. I just thought that research engagement is quite appropriate, especially with COVID-19. The other thing that will come out of this presentation is that everything needs to be data-driven. You know, we need to look at the data about research productivity, about research collaboration, and everything. And so we'll try as much as possible to base most of this presentation on the data that is available. Most of the data available will be from Scopus database. And then the other thing, because this is a captive audience of researchers, I just wanted to let researchers, especially early career researchers, that they should not be inhibited in their research because of lack of research computing or storage facilities. At KENET, we actually operate a big research infrastructure, which is available at no cost to researchers. And if you need more of that infrastructure, we are the ones who connect Kenyan researchers to go to the global research and education community, which has got lots of resources for researchers. So with those few remarks, that's going to be the way I have organized this talk. Now, let me give an overview, some context, something very in this slide, that research has changed. We ourselves at KNET promote openly open science practices. And if you don't believe in open science practices, you might want to see how the vaccines have been developed, the COVID vaccines have been developed in 1 year. The most important thing that happened is the use of open science practices, sharing genetic data, and sharing the knowledge. So although it's only a few countries that seem to have their own vaccines, there is actually nothing that would have stopped an African country from doing this, because all you need is the expertise, and most of the data is actually open, and all the gene sequencing that is happening is available to all researchers. The other thing is that most research has become data intensive, and so you need high performance computing. And part of our research cloud is to provide some of the initial research computing and storage facilities that especially researchers need to start off, even before they then use high performance computing facilities. So this is going to be something that I wanted to emphasize. But for now, may I take a few minutes to introduce KNET as the National Research and Education Network. I know this is a term having come from what Nakosti is describing. You might wonder what it is. KNET as an organization is not a statutory body. It's a bottom-up organization owned and operated by universities and research institutions that are members. And so we tend to be a lot more involved at the execution of policies and facilitating the execution of different projects than at the point of licensing. So we are not a regulatory body, we are an implementation body. Now, it's old. It was formed 20 years ago with the mandate to promote, among other things, research collaboration. And obviously you can see it's a body governed by trustees, founded by DESTA, JKUAT, Moi, University of Nairobi, and USIU way back 1999, 2000. And it has been involved in building a national research, a physical network. So we have engineers who build those networks. Some of them are, yes, graduates of JKUAT. And it can be appointed an implementation agency by the government. It's endorsed as the NREN of Kenya by the Ministry of Education, and is obviously licensed to do anything to do with networking and cloud infrastructure development. So a lot of the engineers and computer scientists with us who help us to execute. Now, that's the mission to catalyze. The big thing is to catalyze transformation. So I was very excited to be invited to give this keynote speech, because we always find a way to let people know what is possible, even with very low budgets and at the bottom with your researchers. We operate a national network with international connections. We are in 46 campuses. We are one of the largest internet networks in terms of the traffic we generate, and we have big pipes, undersea pipes, all the way to that connect us to the rest of the research and education community through Europe. The body that we peer with is called GIANT, and it's the European Research and Education Network, similar to, we also have regional research bodies. So again, let me answer some of the questions you might have why we are interested in what we are doing, especially research engagement. The first thing is, which we are known for, is the high-speed network. because that's foundational. There is no research going on, there is no education going on today if you don't have high speed, whether at home or on campus. We are focused on the campus high-speed connectivity. And we aggregate the demand and therefore drive down community prices. And we've driven down community prices, especially for universities that are outside urban areas or outside Nairobi, where the infrastructure is weak. So we are able to have a uniform infrastructure, whether you are in Lupe, whether you are in Kenya. The other thing that is probably not known is that we operate what is called critical research infrastructures. You know, the most important, and those who are engineers or computer scientists will know, is identity and trust services. Identifying JKUAT, identifying researchers, identifying the users in the global community. So we are the identity provider for Kenya researchers. We issue digital certificates that allow you to roam around the world. We operate the EduRoam, which is a Wi-Fi network for researchers and other federated services. These are critical. You will never know about them because what you see is internet, but we are the operators of this and therefore implement other national policies using that. So I think the bottom line is that NRENs all over the world connect researchers to the global research infrastructures for the virtual research communities. So if there is anything for you to know, please take note of those two, that that's what NRENs are. They are community-owned, community-driven, but they work very closely with governmental bodies. And I must admit that NACOSTI is one of our members, and so is JKUAT. There are many other institutions like ours. It just happens that Kenya probably is a little more, after South Africa, is probably the second most advanced research and education network, mostly because of our strong ecosystem. Now, let me go to the topic that that we agreed with the organizing committee to address, and which is research engagement methods. And for this conference that you are holding is really a research engagement method. Yeah, so there is nothing unique about this. You can have many methods, and one of them is forums and conferences. So what's the purpose of research engagement? At the end of it, what you really do want is to have increased research productivity. Now, how is research productivity measured? Is there a uniform? Now, in this, all the data I will use today is based on Elsevier Scival, which mines the Scopus database. So if your publications do not end up in the Scopus database, they don't appear. Now, this is just one of them. You can use Google Scholar, you can use other tools, but this is a tool that we as Kenneth subscribe to, and which gives us research intelligence. It tells us who is publishing what without necessarily asking them to fill any form. So I think the first thing that I want to probably just point out is, and maybe I can stop the video so that the communication can be better. The first thing that I want to point you to is a national productivity report. We just we just generated this. It covers the period 2015-2020. That's about 6 years. Now, I want you to see that the scholarly output of Kenya in Scopus was 20,000 papers, both conference and journal papers. Only 20,000 in 6 years. Now, you can decide whether 20,000 is a good figure. Now, I do not see in any of our policy document targets. And that is one of the things that I want to challenge all of us. We need to have targets. The other thing I want you to see from the pie chart is that most of our research in this country is medicine driven or from agriculture or the social sciences. Computer science and engineering, according to this, only contributes about 5.7% of the scholarly output of Kenya in those 6 years. Now, is that a good figure? Is that a high figure? Is that there is nowhere where there is a target set by the country? And I don't know whether JKUAT has a target inside at an institutional level. So what happens is that therefore, we as a community-driven organization decided that research engagement will be for these kind of important. They are listed in the national priorities, but they seem not to be generating the research output as we would like them to be. And I just wanted to show you, I'll use some data to demonstrate that the problem is not lack of faculty or researchers. The problem is probably, we made the assumption that the problem is mostly research engagement. Now, research engagement goes along with research funding. So I wanted to compare Kenya just to see how much you need. If you compare Kenya with South Africa, you will see that South Africa in that period of 6 years generated 133,000 scholarly at this is in the period 2015, 2016 to 2020, 5 years, 133, while Kenya is about at 17,000. You can see the quality that we collaborate a lot. Most of our research has got international authors. Now, why is it so high at 78%, even compared to South Africa, which is just at 49%? It means we collaborate a lot internationally. It also means that we get a lot of research funding internationally, because you increase national collaboration through increased research funding. So let's go a little deeper before I introduce the methods. If you look at now 2011 to 2020, and I just want you to see, we have broken, these reports can be broken into 2011 to 2015, and then 2016. So if you look at this column, it's 2011, 2015, and that's the column. Medicine's contribution in 2011 to 2015 was at 38%. Engineering contribution was 3.8%, and computer science was just 2.8%. That has changed in the period 2016 to 2020. That changed to 6%. The medicine stayed almost constant, but engineering increased to 6%, and computer science also increased to 4%. But I want you to look at the absolute figures, 701 and 1055, and ask, again, there is no national target, and I have also not seen institutional target of these figures. So what's the national target? Do we want to increase that output by 10 times or 100 times? Or do we want to increase it by just a few percentages from 3.8 to 6? Or do we want to increase it from 3.8% to probably 38% or 10 times whatever? That is, instead of just having 1055 articles, can we have 10,000? So that's what research engagement aims to do. That the data is suggesting it's not lack of graduate students or PhD level faculty. The problem is elsewhere, and we thought research engagement is probably the thing. Now, Kenneth is privileged to have a lot of data. We collect a lot of data from our members. Data that is actually not available even at CUE. For example, in 2018, we collected data on engineering departments. Yeah, you will know there are 13 universities that offer engineering departments, and we grouped the departments into civil engineering, electrical and electronic, and mechanical and mechatronics. Yeah, so broad groups. We didn't go into all the other subcategories of engineering. And we noticed that the entire university system, and it was comprehensive, the data we derived is that there were 237 PhD level faculty, full-time in our entire university. 237. That's a huge number. But there were only 156 PhD level in ICT, that is computer science, information systems, whatever it is. And when I say ICT departments, it's computer science, sometimes it's called information systems, sometimes in information technology, everything. For computer science departments, there were only about 61 PhDs in the entire country. There is no university in Kenya that does not teach some ICT course. Of all the 73 universities, they do, but the PhDs are only 61. Now, the problem is not questioning whether 156 is a good number or is a bad number. It's just let's look at the analysis that we have done. If there were 1055 papers in engineering over the period 2016-2020, the full-time faculty, whether they have PhD or not, are 413. So each faculty member was generating 0.5 papers per year. So that means every lecturer would publish only one paper every 2 years. In computer science, it's 0.2, which means one lecturer publishes a paper once every 5 years. Now, I have not seen any of these targets put in the strategic plans of many of the institutions that we review. But the idea was, therefore, if you want to increase this scholarly publication, say by 10 times, because 10 times is when you say, even when you consider an innovation, you think of an innovation as something that increases value by almost 10 times or 100 times, or that is scalable. If you wanted to do it, you would not end up with about one paper every year for every faculty with a PhD. But you would probably require that everyone with a PhD should do 5 papers. And if they did 10 papers, our research productivity will increase by 10 times. Is that possible? Yes, if a PhD is supervising 5 students and each of the students publishes a paper, then you can see immediately they can do 5 papers per year. But remember, these are only scopus. These are papers in scopus. There might be other papers in repositories, in presentations like this that are not. So that is the motivation for research engagement. Yeah, I hope I have set the groundwork that, then we focused only on computer science, engineering, and physical sciences. And you can do lots of studies, but there is very limited international research funding into those programs. And there is also little local research funding for those programs. For us, we had a very simple method, and one of them is what I mentioned at the beginning, that all of you need research infrastructures to do your research. The research is data-driven, so you need research computing, you need research storage. That's what open science requires. And obviously, you also need to collaborate with many people, because open science means pulling data from everywhere in other repositories. So we have noticed a reduced usage of research infrastructures. Obviously, we counted 156 PhDs in computer science or 200 in engineering, but we don't know them. So in order to engage, remember we are not engaging at an institutional level. We are engaging at the people level, the actual faculty member with a PhD. And that's always the difference. Engaging at the upper level is different from engaging at the ground level. Now, we make the point, research engagement potentially, and we have not measured this, but based on other countries, the way other countries manage research engagement, they do research engagement for the purpose of increasing research productivity. And if we go further than that, innovation, which is the theme of this. Now, let me now therefore go to the next level and probably highlight what COVID-19 has done. During COVID-19, one of the things we had to do was to expand our research cloud infrastructure. Initially, it was to support the E side of the education side. Everyone was doing blended learning, online learning. They need infrastructure. They need cloud infrastructure. So the infrastructure we use for that and the infrastructure we use for research is actually the same hardware. And so that is updated. But we also ended up, because we have many software appliances, cloud-based software appliances, whether it's RStudio for people generating data, Python, or MATLAB for engineers, or Jupyter Notebooks for data visualization, those have remained available. Now, before COVID, we used to have forums and webinars. Yes, webinars. We used to have webinars using our own, very own Big Blue Button platform, but we would visit. Now we can't visit. So everything is in webinars, and we have been very busy again on webinars for researchers, because we hold a very huge database of researchers which we have collected over the years, and therefore we are able to reach these researchers during COVID. And sometimes you will have researchers that are also going on bioinformatics. Those who do collaboration are already used to working in the cloud. And so COVID did not catch them by surprise. The other thing is that obviously the first thing is that if you are outside the campus, how do you get access to resources that are inside the campus? And we use something we call, there is institutional off-campus internet, which needs to become secure. And for it to become secure, we had to use our critical research infrastructures for that. So we have something called EduVPN. This is for researchers themselves and for authentication. So, and then we have some Kenneth-funded research projects. Yes, funded, small projects. They suffered delays because obviously they went home and they were lost for doing any more research. So we had already formed special interest groups, and those special interest groups have been going on with their meetings and with engagements. Each research special interest group is led by a senior faculty member, whether it's in computer science like Dr. Wanjiku Nganga, or engineering, Dr. Shira Maina, or it's in the physical sciences, physics, Professor Georgia Molo. Those are people, they are not employees of Kenneth, but they are associated with Kenneth. They give their time to be research associates in this community-driven engagement. This is one of the most effective ways of engaging researchers, because the researchers themselves know their colleagues, they can reach out to their colleagues, and they are able, because research engagement is at the human level first. So we have had active research communities. As we said, we give research teams every year, about 4 teams, from researchers. We give them small grants. And these grants help them to prepare for applying for big grants, say by the National Research Fund, or even international grants and all. So this is kind of for early career. And early career is anyone who got a PhD less than 5 years from the data to which so if it is today is March, 5 years from March, then they would be able to get that. And there are still, those I have highlighted in green are still ongoing. And that helps us to discover researchers, but also to keep researchers active in certain areas. And those researchers we have known, we have tracked them, and they go on to do bigger things with other collaborators just by starting them off in their early careers. So we had a very vibrant conference grants program, and we sponsor lots of students and faculty into those. They have to have published in a Scopus conference. That is a conference publication will end up in Scopus or Web of Science. Now this year, under COVID, yes, we still give grants, quite a bit of grants that had been given by February or March last year, and they still went on. But in the fiscal year that is now affected, we have actually more grants available because now the cost has come down. There is no travel, there is no accommodation, and therefore we can actually support many more. So the researchers who are here and are struggling with registration in some of the peer-reviewed conferences, please get in touch, go to the website and apply online, and you will get a grant because yes, those grants usually were limited to $2,000 per author, but now it's mostly to do with registration, up to almost $500 for registration for some of the expensive conferences, especially in engineering. So what have we learned? We have learned, first of all, that the cloud matters, and we really are, we were blessed with the fact that we had developed the cloud to very advanced levels, and therefore when COVID came, we could still operate the cloud even from home. I work from home, most engineers work from home, but we are able to operate this cloud infrastructure for the community. The critical research infrastructure which we have developed over the last 6-7 years was very useful, especially in providing secure access or off-campus access to resources. Because remember, the whole idea is that we do not want you to appear to be a Safaricom customer, because if you are from Safaricom, you can't get access to global research and education network resources. You've got to appear to be from Kenya, and that's what we were doing with the critical research infrastructure. But the most important thing we have learned is that research engagement is so useful for expanding the human network. And we want to really encourage research funders, NACOSTI, and universities to develop appropriate methods. So we did notice that COVID-19 did initially disrupt the researchers, but very good is that they are coming back. And they are getting back. They are now used to working in this new environment, and so we are seeing increased uptick. So increased research engagement is also not about communication. If you don't have some money, some funding for some projects and to facilitate, then most researchers will ignore your research engagement activities. It's the same thing. Research collaboration follows research funding, and so those are the lessons. So in conclusion, we have used a variety of research engagement methods, and hopefully these methods can be adopted by funding bodies, by especially NRF, NACOSTI, universities, research institutions. Many of them do work. The special interest group, which are only 3-4 right now, are excellent, have been excellent for developing early career faculty researchers, who then go on to apply big grants from other sources. And then universities, research bodies, and research funders all need appropriate research engagement methods. Now, obviously, in the future, we shall be studying the impact of research engagement, because at this stage, we were busy executing research engagements. Yes, we've done some anecdotal, we've got some anecdotal data showing that the people we have worked with have ended up having more publication accepted in peer-reviewed conferences and journals, and that they have contributed a bit to the increase. But remember, our desire is a 10 times increase. So, Chair of the session, thank you. That is all I had to share. I know time has run out, but that's I'm available for any questions that that you might have.
Thank you, thank you, Professor Kashoda, for that presentation. It's quite an eye-opener in several aspects, and there is, I don't seem to have any question, but maybe I'll just ask one concerning this research outputs, which you say that the scholarly outputs was only about 20,000 for Kenya, compared to 133,000 in South Africa. Yes. And of course, this is a scholarly output that was captured by Scopus.
Yes.
Now, is there any effort to be able to kind of find out if there is other research output that might be useful that and was not captured by Scopus? Because you find that, of course, the Professor Oyawa had indicated that one of the challenges they do have is the publications in predatory journals. And of course, you'll find that Scopus might not really capture some of these journals. So do we have a way whereby we are able to capture the research? It may not really be, let's say, useful to Scopus, but it may be useful to us. Is there a way of kind of capturing this kind of information?
Yes, thank you. Yes, there is. Yes, this is Scopus. As Professor Oyawa explained, universities need an institutional policy on journals. So it's up to the university to decide what goes into their repository, what is accepted, and whether so at that level. Maybe at the national level, the research funding bodies, especially NRF, can also develop a criteria of what is a good journal to be accepted. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that we are pushing, because this Scopus is, this SciVal tool, research intelligence tool, is a pricey tool that we subscribe to it on behalf of the community, so that you as a professor, if you wanted to review one of your lecturers, you can actually ask us to generate the research productivity of that one, even if without asking them to, so you can verify. And I have received requests from vice chancellors, from DVCs who are interviewing professors. Mm-hmm. But the thing we are promoting right now is OSCID IDs, Open Researcher, and it's a research ID that is open and it is free for any researchers. And what we are trying to do is to create a consortium. Now, once you have a consortium, you get APIs for those who are in the software industry, and you can build your own tools of extracting information. And you don't really need to have a form filled by every researcher to tell you where they are. Because as long as when they publish and they use their OSCID ID, that information is open to members of the consortium, and they can pull that data and analyze it almost the same way Scopus is analyzing. You see, Elsevier Cyval is analyzing at a fee, but we can also, as a community, build an application that is free, and that's what has been used a lot in Europe. They use OSID. Every faculty member gets an OSID ID, and from the OSID ID, then you can go to the registry and extract the data as you wish, and it's credible data.
Okay.
So yeah, what is in the repository and what you consider scholarly research is obviously at an institutional level, but we look at things at a broader national level. But we can generate this kind of reports for JKUAT alone. We can benchmark JKUAT with any of the peer universities they want to be benchmarked with, so that we can do. But unfortunately, yeah, it is only Scopus database. Thanks.
Okay, because you find that many a times, like yes. As a university, we may want to, let's say, improve our web rankings. And yes. You find that the staff has publication, and you find that many times you find that you get requests, let's say from the librarian, that we send the title of your publication and the abstract for the last 1 year. And sometimes it's really not easy because you find that Kenneth has the capacity to be able to track yes. all publications, isn't it?
Yes, this tool can track at the researcher level. Yeah, so if you are generating that and you have decided that only Scopus database is important, then we can help you. You can send a request to Kenneth and we can generate the results for you. But the even better is for JKUAT to subscribe directly and therefore make this tool available to all departmental heads, for example, who need to track the research productivity of their faculty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then one more is this issue of, you call them special interest groups, which you give grants to early career researchers. Is there a forum or a platform whereby other researchers can be aware of the existence of such a forum, especially those in computing and information sciences?
Yes.
Or how do you identify a researcher?
What happens is that the research associate who leads the special interest group will generate the initial call for proposals. We review it. A group of researchers in his network or her network review the call for proposals, and then we send out the call for proposals through our website and through the mailing lists of heads of department. We, for example, maintain an active mailing list of all heads of department, of ICT departments, of engineering departments. So we use that to broadcast. We also have their mobile numbers, and so we use mass SMS to draw them to attention, and we also use social media.
Okay.
And then, so we then get proposals, and from the proposals we select the top 4, and we give them the grants. Yeah. So we put together a panel of evaluators, mostly senior faculty from different universities. They approve, and then we grant. We give about 4 grants, 4 research teams, and they must be research teams. Most of them have ended up being because we haven't had we have some that are multi-university, but most of them will be research teams within a university, combining, say, engineering and computer science and agriculture as one team. So that's what we have been doing. But these are catalytic. The universities, the research funding must scale it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that.
Right. Yeah, and thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me and inviting Kenneth.
It is our pleasure and the pleasure of the university, so as to at least know some of the ways whereby we can increase usage of infrastructure, because as you said, that surely in the current pandemic, information infrastructure is key especially not only for computing, but to actually invest in all the areas of research. Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. And you can share my email so that if there is anyone who needs to access some specialized research infrastructures, they can do it. We are able to facilitate them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And then at this juncture, we move to our third keynote address. And this one is titled The Double Burden of Climate Change and COVID-19 on Food and Nutrition Security. And this keynote address will be given by Professor James Kungu of Kenyatta University. And Professor James Kungu is a professor of forestry and climate change in the Department of Environmental Sciences, School of Environmental Studies, Kenyatta University. Welcome, Prof.
Prof, you could unmute your mic. Prof, you could unmute your microphone maybe.
Is it unmute now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Victoria Ngumi, the Chief guest, Professor Walter Bayawa, the Deputy Vice Chancellors that are present, principals of colleges, deans of schools, directors, chairmen of departments, distinguished scholars, students, ladies and gentlemen. As you have been told, I'm James Kungu. I saw somebody give some information, and I say that that is history because I'm no longer the dean of school. I stopped being the dean in 2018. Currently, I've been the director of Magina University, and I'm also studying for the DVC administration. I was asked to talk about the double burden of climate change and COVID-19 pandemic as it relates to food and nutritional security. And what I can be able to say as an introduction is that when you look at various data, you realize that the world is progressing neither toward sustainable development goal target 2.1, which is of ensuring access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food for all people all year round, nor toward target 2.2 of eradicating all form of malnutrition. You realize that currently there are so many threats to the progress toward achieving that. By year 2017 and 2018, conflict and climate variability and extremes were recognized to be a undermining effort to end hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition. By 2019, we noticed that there was economic slowdown and downturn, which also undercut these efforts. And by last year in 2020, we had the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as an unprecedented desert locust outbreak, especially in our East African region, that affected food security and nutrition. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, you notice that almost 690 million people, or 8.9% of the global population, were recorded to be undernourished. And it is expected, it is said that the COVID-19 pandemic. Macheka, you can please mute. Lester Macheka, you can mute. So beyond, I say that the COVID-19 pandemic added an additional 83 to 132 million people to the rank of those who are said to be undernourished. And let me say that beyond hunger, we are having a growing number of people that have had to reduce the quantity and quality of the food that they are consuming. It is said by 2019, there were 2 billion people, or 25.9% of the global population, that experienced hunger or did not have regular access to nutritious and sufficient food. So when we talk about food security, we know, according to the World Food Summit in 1996, they say that food security exists when all people at all times have both physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. So whenever we are talking about food security, we have to look at the availability of food. We have also to look at the accessibility of this food, economically and physically. We have also to look at the utilization, the way it is used and assimilated by the human body. And we have also to look at the stability of the 3 dimension. And what is happening today? We have the climate change, and the climate change has affected the frequency of extreme weather events. And climate change also alters agricultural growing patterns. And because of climate change, you realize that it also affects the distribution pattern of pests, weeds, and diseases that threaten crops and livestock. And you can be able to see that climate change itself is not only affecting the growth of the agriculture crops, it's also growing the growing patterns. We're having cases today. Some areas that used to produce certain crops, they cannot grow nowadays because either the seasons have become also too short, and other areas in the world, you find there is a prolonged, whether it is drought or a prolonged rain patterns. Many people are now also reporting outbreaks of pests and diseases. Weeds are being, that have never been seen before, are appearing in many of our farms. And therefore today, that has been the problem before, the problem of climate change. But you realize that today, apart from the climate change, we have now the problem of COVID-19. And the two, they seem to be hitting very hard on agriculture. And when they hit very hard on the agriculture, what is expected on agriculture as far as the production of enough safe and nutritious food is concerned, you realize that now both the quantity and the quality are affected. You also realize that we can no longer talk about sustainability of our natural resources. And you realize that also now, though agriculture is expected to generate jobs and income and contribute to poverty eradication, and especially in our rural area, the rural economic growth, we are no longer able to achieve this. So climate change and COVID-19 are now affecting agriculture in a very negative ways. How is it affecting? On one side, we have the climate change. On the other side, we are now having the COVID-19. And what is happening? You realize the two have affected the food systems, the way food is being produced, the kind of food that is being produced. You realize that the two also affect the social systems. And as they affect the social systems, you realize they also affect the economic development. The double tragedy of climate change and COVID-19. If we can look at COVID-19 itself, you realize, I said when I was starting, that when we talk about food security, we have to talk about access. We have to talk about availability of this food. We have to talk about stability of the food, utilization, agency, and sustainability. But you realize now, because of COVID-19, the access has been affected. And all of us know what happened with the COVID-19. There were lockdowns, which led to loss of jobs and income. Lockdown also led to higher food prices. We know there was disruption of schools, where schools were closed, and some of the students, they were only getting nutritious meal from the school program. This one had to stop. COVID-19 also curtailed the safety nets of diminished access to the food. There was also closer proximity and informal markets. And all this affected the common man ability to access the food. On the availability of this nutritious food, we know that COVID-19 led to disruption of the supply chains. In many countries, in fact, in almost all the countries, labor shortages was reported. You couldn't get people to work in farms. There was close of high-risk processing plants. There were close of restaurants and food stores. And there was shift to lower-risk crops. On the stability, there was disruption on supply chains. There was uncertainty on markets and input access. There was price volatility. There was export restrictions, when we know that even air transport couldn't happen. And on the utilization, you find that what many people did was to shift to cheaper, less healthy diets. There was also a shift toward processed and shelf-stable food, especially in developed countries. And it has been noted that with COVID-19, the level of malnutrition has also increased. On sustainability, there is increase in food losses and waste. There is also an increase in packaging and plastic waste, decreased attention to climate change and environmental issues, because everybody now is talking about COVID-19. And there is social and economic losses that are affecting food system viability. And I tried to unpack this, and you realize that because of COVID-19, many countries went to lockdown policies, including our own in Kenya. And what did the lockdown do? And we know even today, there are other countries that are under lockdown. Lockdown policies disrupted the supply chains. They also disrupted the social protection. They also led to global economic recession. And all these led to deepening inequalities. There has been uneven food price effect, changes in production, and altered food environment. And what has this done? It has increased poverty and food insecurity in the world. If we can unpack further on the impact of COVID-19 of food system over time, you realize we can talk about the initial effect, that is the first to second month after the COVID-19. There is also medium term, 2 to 5 months, and now the longer term, which we are in today. And I can say that today, you realize that because of COVID-19, there is loss of livelihood and people's access to food. And this has resulted in a massive increase in hunger in many parts of the world. There is also loss of food system livelihood that threaten food system stability and resilience. We are noticing a shift in diet where people are now going for less nutritious food. And this is impacting on their health and livelihood prospect. And you can also realize there is ongoing uncertainty constraint and long-term investment in the food and agriculture sector, and a diminished attention to climate and biodiversity that threaten food sustainability. If you look at the world, we can ask ourselves, when you talk about food insecure, where do they live? Unfortunately, you realize that the food insecure people live in the poorest and marginal areas of Asia. You find them also in Africa. You find them also in Latin America. And you look at those 3 areas, you also realize that these areas, they suffer from environmental degradation. This is also the areas where the climate change is having a very big impact. You find in continent like South America or in Latin America, the most food insecure, they live in poor urban and rural setting. We know in Africa, the most poor live in the rural areas. The current climate risk and food insecurity intersect in most vulnerable areas of the world, whether you're talking in West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, or South Asia. And I can say that this is because of a combination of both exposure to climate risk, such as floods, droughts, and storms, as well as high poverty rates and high sensitivity to climate change. We can look at the framework and we look at the pathway through which climate change affects, especially the nutrition. And now we are not only talking about the climate change, we are also talking about the COVID-19. And you realize that with the climate change, yes, it affects the potential resources. As I mentioned earlier, it affects economic, political, ideological structures. It affects formal and informal institutions. Climate change affects household food insecurity. It also affects maternal and child undernutrition. And it also has short-term consequences and long-term, especially the issue to do with mortality, morbidity, and disability that are usually as a result of maternal and child undernutrition. And we are seeing the same with COVID-19 affecting the same sectors. And that one now bring us to a question, what do we need to do? But before we come to that, Dixon Gossi, can you mute? If you look at the COVID-19 global economic recession last year, you look at what it did to the economy. In the world, it led to -5 of the GDP. Developing countries, -6.2. Developing countries, the impact was not so much, -3.6. Africa and south of Sahara, where we are, -8.9. Asia, -5. South Asia, 7. Latin America, 5.9. So you can see that as far as the economic recession is concerned, Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, is most affected at a country level. And if you look at also household consumption, you realize that although the world this led to only -1%, in Africa and south of Sahara, it is 3.2, -3.2. For South Asia, -3.7. For South Asia, 4.2. And Latin America, 4.4. And you can be able to look, we can be able to go and look whether it is export of goods, agri-food, real value-added, agri-food export, you realize it has all affected negatively. And Africa, we have not been left behind. And we are noticing that the COVID-19 is affecting rural and urban areas differently. It is also affecting different regions of the world differently. We are noticing that if you look like the world, though the population have been affected by about 20, you realize the rural population is about 15. But come to Africa, south of Sahara, and especially here we are talking about the increase in the number of poor people and a relative increase in the number of poor people, you realize that, okay, because of COVID-19, it has led to a big percentage increase of poor people, 20%. And for the rural population, about 15. But you look at like Africa, south of Sahara, and you realize that this one in the total population, we have quite a big percentage, which is about 23%. And you look like other countries, yes, the percent has increased, but not as much as Africa. So I say COVID-19 has affected our economic growth. It is affecting the level of poverty. The impact has been so high in our continent. And if you look at the data by World Food Program, FAO, IFAD, UNICEF, and World Health Organization in 2017 on the state of food security and nutrition in the world, you realize that if you look at the world, it is so happened that from year 2000, this has been decreasing up to 2015. 2016 increased. You find 2017 also increased. 2018, 2019, and now 2020, when we had the COVID. Now this curve has now continued growing. Unfortunately, you also look for Africa. This is our curve for Africa, the top one. You realize that now it is increasing also, though it has started decreasing by up to around 2014, but from 2015, this curve has started, the line has started climbing up, which is quite unfortunate. And we are saying climate change and COVID-19 has really contributed to that undernourishment of our continent. Because of climate change, and you look at the projected changes in crop yield for all locations, you realize that from 2010 to 2029, you realize that mostly, we may not, I may not need to go to 2090, but what is projected, especially during the time that we are in, we are saying that there is going to be a lot of some countries, there is going to be increase in crop yield. Somebody may ask me, why are they going to have an increase in crop yield? We know because of climate change, some areas are going to receive more rainfall. We know some areas are also going to lengthen the short of the growing season. But as I mentioned, we are having more negative on the yield. There is going to be a decline in crop yield. And the decline, this one, because of climate change, we know there is change in weather patterns. Areas are no longer receiving enough rainfall. I also mentioned a part of change in weather patterns. We are seeing an increase in pests and diseases in some areas. We are also noticing emergence of certain weeds that are having a very negative impact on the crop yields. And it is unfortunate that most of the areas in the developing countries, that is where we are seeing that there is going to be more decrease in crop yield rather than increase in crop yield. It is being expected that when you look at the number of malnourished children in sub-Saharan Africa, by year 2000, which was a baseline, we had about 3 million. This is was expected to grow to 42 million by 2050 without climate change and without COVID. With climate change, by 2050, this is expected to be 52 million. And now we are talking about also now the COVID-19. And I can tell you that that number is now projected to increase. I was just trying to show the population growth, which we know it is also having a big impact on food security. But if you can look at the per capita food losses and waste, even as we talk about the impact of climate change, you look at the per capita food losses and waste, and we look at, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, you realize that we are losing a lot of our food in production to retailing. Consumer very little, unlike North America, where we have quite a big percentage, where the loss is the consumer themselves. And therefore, as researchers, we have to see, how do we reduce this production and retailing? I said that the production and retailing has been affected by climate change. It has also been affected by COVID-19. But as researchers, how do we address that problem? Because it's a big problem that need to be addressed. If you look at the history, you realize that over the years, in the early days, 1961, 1970, most of the increase in crop yield was due to input and increase in the area of growing the crops. We know what that did. It led to a lot of destruction of our natural resources. But now this one is not so much now the input, but We know input has declined, and it is unfortunate. Okay, we have the new land, which is, it will be very interesting when you look at this bar graph for different regions of the world, because the bar chart looks so different. In Africa, you find that our increase nowadays is because of the new land and input and area, you find it is still very low. Irrigation, you find it is extremely very low. And that is why we need to see how are we going to increase our crop yield in Africa. We don't need to do it the way the whole world is doing. Can we, for developing countries, can we be in a position to come up with ways and means that will be able to solve the problem of food insecurity? In conclusion, I want to say that climate change and COVID-19 is impacting heavily on food security and nutrition. And there is need for us to put more effort in mitigation and adaptation to climate change. As institutions of higher learning, we should be offering solutions to adaptation strategies to climate change and mitigation and adaptation to climate change, and now also adaptation to COVID-19. And I know as universities, we have been involved, like Kenyatta University, where I have seen students coming up with ventilators and swabs. But I was impressed when we are looking at, there was the Jomo Kenyatta, where you are using insects for boosting the nutrition of food. But I was saying, how many people are ready to do that? Can we go a step further and maybe work with the biotechnology department and try to get out some of these nutrients so that when I go to buy, I'm not buying the cockroach, I'm not buying the locust, I'm buying a particular nutrient in the shop to boost the immunity, because we have to look at how do we solve the problem, not only of climate change, but also the problem of COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, for the quite informative information. And I'm being told we are doing badly on time, so we won't ask so many questions. Huh? And there's one question that is, the one person is wondering that Africa is being classified as food insecure. But yet, it seems as if we have all the resources to be food secure. And of course, the food insecurity has been made worse by COVID, in the sense that for some time, actually, one of the main challenges was food distribution. So what are some of these adaptation strategies that we can have to ensure that the distribution of food is well taken care of? Because we find that, for instance, our country, Kenya, many a times we claim that we are food insecure, but our main problem is actually food distribution. Because you'll find in one part of the country, there's just too much food. Yet on the other part of the country, there's, because of course, climate change issues, they have no food. But then you wonder, how come it becomes quite a challenge to move food from one area of the country to another?
Thank you, Prof, for that question. It will surprise you that when you look at the whole world, Africa has the highest percentage of productive land. That is what surprises you. On the other side, You look at the level of food insecurity and you find, unfortunately, we are also #1. And, you know, I know you have traveled, just like I have. But I was impressed when Jomo Kenyatta, you talked about coming up with that tractor. I can tell you Africa will never be food secure as long as we are using the djembe for food production. We will never be food secure. You realize the way you are born, the time you are born, and you found your people in the village doing the farming. Today is still the same thing, which is a big challenge to us as academicians, that we may be doing a lot of research, but we may not be doing the right research. The other thing is to do with policies. You have raised the issue where we have known that some areas they may be having more than enough, but other areas they have nothing. Some of it is to do with policies. For you to transport maize, it is easier for you to transport maize from some part from outside the countries. That is why in Kenya we are getting a lot of maize from Uganda. We get maize from even all the way from Zambia and Malawi. But to transport maize from certain part of this country become very difficult. So to me, that is to do with the policies which need to be addressed. And the other thing is to do with our culture. When people talk about food insecure in Kenya, what are they talking about? They're saying that there is no ugari, there is no maize.
Yes.
When there is no maize, people say there is no food. So I am saying there is a lot that need to be done. When we talk about food insecure, it is as a result of so many other things that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think we'll stop there. We appreciate if we have any other more information, we'll be able to share with you, which you can address. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you and welcome.
At this point, though time has really gone, I think I will hand over to Dr. Kenyuru, or do we just go now to the parallel session? Maybe Dr. Kenyuru, you may guide on that.
Thank you very much, Chair, and for doing a good job. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to open all the rooms, breakout rooms. The rooms will be open for 2.5 hours. And so we will close all the rooms at exactly 1:55. Breakout sessions will be closed for the plenary at 2. So kindly, chairs, as you be very efficient, coordinate time such that by 1:55 p.m. Kenya time, or you have done with your session, because the rooms will automatically close and we'll go to the plenary session. Now we are opening all the breakout rooms. Members, on your bottoms, on your screen, on the bottom right side, you will see breakout rooms. Click on the room you want to go. If you scroll down on that pop-up menu, you will scroll down and see the room you want to join. And then you automatically join. There will be a chair and a rapporteur and a technical person to guide you. So members, kindly, thank you very much. Let's get to the breakout rooms. The technical team will be on hand to help. In case you get stuck, drop a quick email or a chat in this main room and you'll be helped. Thank you very much. I will scroll down.
If you are unable to join, please just type which session you want to join on the chat and we can assign it to you if you cannot see the breakout room option. Paul, is there an issue? Please unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this breakout room. We're dealing with water, energy, and environment. We have our chair, Dr. Shadrach Muya. Please welcome Dr. Shadrach Muya. I hope all the presenters are around. Owino Jacqueline and Ferdinand Malemo. Is any one of you around?
Yes, welcome. Let's do.
Owino Jacqueline or Ferdinand Malemo? Anyone around? Okay, Catherine Washera Kiama. Catherine Washera, are you in? Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Apio Elias, are you in? No. Hello. Hello. Hello, are you able to hear me? Please let me know if you can hear me. Hello? Welcome to this meeting. Our first presentation is on land use and land cover, changes in agrosystems and their impacts on human-wildlife interactions. This presentation is going to be presented by Owino Jacqueline and Ferdinand Malemo. Please let me know if you're here. You're welcome. If the presenters are not here yet, then we will move to the next presentation, isolation and characterization of bacteria from Lake Olbos, Lasat and Oloiden in Kenya. Catherine Washora, Kiama, and the group, please, you're welcome for the presentation. Because time is not on our side, let's see if the third presenter is around. Apio Elias. Apio Elias Modeling and Energy Management Strategy in a grid connected solar PV battery storage system in Kenya? If you're here, let me know. Elias, we are waiting for you. Hello. Among all the presenters that we have, who is here? Who is ready to present?
Hello.
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 I'm not Mr. Apio, but Apio's slide was put on my screen.
They are opposite.
And mine also,
Okay.
I'm not able to know where it is.
Okay, so what is your name?
Pardon?
You are Majowi Thomas.
I'm Nyajoi Thomas, yes.
You're supposed to present under which sub-theme?
I'm supposed to present in engineering technologies, built environment, and infrastructure for industrialization.
So give me a minute. Let me assign you to the group.
And in fact, I was supposed to be the first presenter.
So just say which room you
So
want to
give me a
assign
minute.
to.
Let me assign you there.
Thanks.
Fine. Let me continue and put it.
Bwana, ana screen na.
Hello, Thomas.
Yes, madam.
Thomas,
Yes,
please
madam.
leave the room. Leave
Yes.
the room and make sure you don't leave the meeting. Just leave the room so that it can be assigned to engineering.
I think I've done that.
You've left this room?
Yeah, I clicked leave the room.
Okay, please
But
click
did not
again
leave the
because
meeting.
you're still here. Click leave.
Let me see. Okay. So I click leave on the red button on the bottom right.
Yes, leave the room, not the meeting. Make sure you don't leave the meeting.
Okay, room had left.
Okay, go back to breakout room, pick the right room.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now there. Join breakout room. You have been assigned breakout room engineering.
Hello. Water, energy, and environment. Hello.
Is anyone in this meeting and they can hear me? Kindly let me know. Anyone still remaining here in the main room? Yes, Dennis, kindly on your right, you'll see the icon for join breakout room. There's reactions, then next to it, you'll see either 3 dots or you see join breakout rooms. Click on it and pick a room that you want to join. Am I clear, Dennis? Patrick, we have left this room and we are on breakout rooms now. So you need to choose a breakout room and join. Can you hear me? You know how to pick a breakout room? Go with me. On the bottom screen, on the bottom of your screen, you'll see share screen, then live stream, then reactions. Then you'll see then you will see breakout rooms. Talk to me if you can hear me, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks. I'm getting you. I'm able to see that.
So you're able to see breakout rooms. Click on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Then scroll down and see the room that you want to join, the theme that you want to join, and join it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.